Friends, if you're looking for real old school laughs, you're in for a treat because we've got them right here. Flip City Magazine. Remember MEAD magazine? Then it went woke? Well, don't worry. Flip City has no chance of going woke. That's right. 4 times a year, you'll get an actual printed magazine full of jokes, stories, comics, and more, all about today's pop culture, entertainment, and woke politics. Flip City takes terrible entertainment trends we love to hate with hilarious parodies of Lord of the Rings, Stranger Things, The Walking Dead, Star Trek, Hunters, and more. Trust me when I say there is nothing else like Flip City on the market. So subscribe today. It will be delivered in print, or you can even get it digitally if you're one of those wacky Zoomers. Either way, follow our link and sign up today, and if you put in midnight, you get an extra 10% off. Check out Flip City Magazine today. That's right. We actually started on time tonight. How's everybody doing?
Shocked because we started on time.
Shocking.
Shocking.
Because Brian's here for a limited time. So hello, 70s rock fan. How you doing?
I'm very well, my friend. How are you?
Doing all right. And we got a story that's music related we're going to do off the top. We got CC karaoke. Speaking of music, how you doing with that grand, beautiful view? Look at this, folks. We could almost just leave this on our screen. You should crank up the resolution. Can you crank it up to like 1080p? I paid for the 1080p.
I set it up in a hurry, so
I paid for the 1080p, sir.
It would even be even better if it didn't have all the coach loads.
See, look at that! Oh my God, that's gorgeous. I'm almost there. That's beautiful. Holy crap! Look at that.
I can zoom out. I can zoom in.
Wow.
Beautiful.
This is where I plan on spending the next 2 months of my life.
Just
which mountain are we looking at here?
I don't know the name of this one. The one to the right of it's called Snow Dome.
Oh,
probably for a reason, because of the snow.
Yeah, it's in Canada.
Nice.
Canada. We have winter all the year around here, so.
Indeed. So thank you for being here, CC, and we have also joining us Clobbering Times. Hey.
Hey, man. How's it going? Great panel and great chat. Good to be here.
Indeed. No, the background is not too much, CC. In fact, I love it. We also have joining us 32 Flavors of Nick Weiser. How you doing, sir?
Hi, Tom, Clobby, CC Karaoke. That's something's rock fan. Hello, chat and mods. Happy to be here. It's a nice, good old Thursday night, and thank you. And obviously, we have a great headline for tonight. That's definitely going to be worthy of great discussion.
Yes, indeed. We got another story I want to get into first, maybe one or two. But first, let's get into some super chats and whatnot. And Six is in the back. She may be joining us. I'm not sure. Zontar sent in 5 Canadians. Speaking of Canadians, here you go. He says, I can't trust the YouTubers who called the NASCAR quarterly testing at Dega this weekend a race with bad attendance. Takes 10 seconds to fact check. Oh, see, well, I did not know anything about this. But, I'm glad you know and you saw to the bottom of it, Zontar. And then John Meg says, I think you guys at Midnight's Edge do a great job with all the entertainment news. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you so much, John, and welcome to the program. And I also see we got Dr. Coffin Nails here. We got Trenchman here. We got Davina Duckworth, Gwem Stacy, Trenchman again. I see you there. FKH 2005. We've got Gregory Mize here. We also have Nicholas Horton here. So many regulars. I see Duck Nation, Valentine's Tube. Welcome. Coco Dragon. Is it Coco Dragon or Cacho Dragon? I've seen people pronounce or heard people pronounce it different ways. We got Mutant Bandhammer here. We got San Ekre. If that's how you say that, San Ekre. Lombardi is here. We got so many of you guys. David Glenn, welcome to the program. Hopefully we'll have some more coming in from the pro show here in a bit. But while we're waiting for all those guys, we've got a bit of a geeky story here. How many Beatles fans do we have on the panel right now?
Oh God,
Yeah.
it's my favorite band. Yeah,
A lot of. It looks like you have a bunch. 'Cause I'm one.
Yeah, they're one of my favorite band, full disclosure. I get it. Some people say they're overrated, and I'm not necessarily going to argue that. But at the same time, most people who even agree that they're overrated will concede that, yes, the Beatles were one of the most influential bands in the history of forever. So with that, there's a bit of ruckus over this news coming up about a new Beatles record. I wasn't even aware there was going to be a new Beatles record. So, Brian, CC, have you heard about this yet? What is this all about?
I thought it was supposed to be just one song. They're doing a whole record?
Oh,
no, just one song. It's another one of the tracks that was on the cassette that Yoko gave them at the time of Anthology, where they managed to dredge. So John had recorded piano, vocal stuff on cassette as demos, whatever.
Like with Real Love, and I can't remember the other one was.
It's Free as a Bird and Real Love, and this is there was 4 tracks on there.
Yeah.
And this is the third one. And it's called, well, they think it's going to be Now and Then, it's called. And there is a 4th one, but apparently that one's in an even worse state. Grow Old With Me, I think, is the other one. So, I mean, bootlegs of the actual cassette have been around for a long time that you could hear. And it's very faint, very, John singing, bit of piano. They wanted to do like the other 2 in the used for Anthology. They wanted to do it then, but it was in such a poor state that with the technology at the time, even with guys like Jeff Lynne involved and George Martin, they couldn't dredge up enough of the audio of John's vocal to make it worthwhile. Well, so they said. I mean, George Harrison in particular said, "This is garbage. Can't use it. It doesn't matter what we do, we can't use it." Well,
yeah, that was at the time. Exactly. Yeah, I was just going to say, because that was the problem then, but now not so much, because my understanding was for the Get Back sessions, I keep wanting to say Let It Be, but they called it Get Back at the end. Actually, that was where they used this technology. And CC, this is, from my understanding, very similar to the technology that you use, actually, where it actually separates all the audio. So the reason I brought this on and the reason I wanted us to talk about this is because I think people are misunderstanding what part of this is AI, I think. Right, CC?
Yeah, I think that's the key thing. This is not deep fake. This is not young Harrison Ford deep fake
or
AI over.
Young George Harrison Ford.
Or, well, no, he's talking about like Indiana Jones. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean,
young George Harrison Ford. Yeah.
In movies, in modern movies, you're using AI to create things that don't exist, right? Like creating a young Harrison Ford in the upcoming Indy movie.
I know, I got you. I lost you for a second, but now I'm back on track.
That's fair enough. And I think the important thing to realize here is that's not what they're doing. What they're not creating something that doesn't yet exist. What they're doing is called demixing. And when you think about mixing, right, you take the bass, the guitar, the vocals, they're recorded on individual recordings, individual stem tracks, and then they're mixed together to create the final album cut. What AI has been able to do in the realm of music is it's able to, with increasing accuracy, demix the audio. So you can return the audio from that final album state to its individual stems. Now, it's not perfect yet, but it's definitely clean enough that if you have lots of money at your disposal and a professional studio and all of that, you can make it sound good. And certainly if it's one stem among the rest of the stems, like if Paul McCartney's going to record his own stuff on top of this, what all they're doing here is they're taking the vocal track that John Lennon already recorded, and they're isolating it from all the other noise in the background. The AI is trained to listen to John Lennon's voice, or listen to.
And I would imagine they may even have recordings from when they did the Free as a Bird and Real Love sessions. When they tried to do these other tracks, I bet they have George.
Well,
some stuff recorded to George, I bet too.
I'm thinking, Tom, that,
and that's what I think you're saying. CC is like they'll be able to pull out just John's track as opposed to
that's it.
Like with Real Love and Free as a Bird, they had to contend with John playing, and in some cases falling out of beat or whatever and stuff like that. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and
any recording of John Lennon or any artist at all, if that recording of that artist, that singer, has other instruments or sounds in it, you can isolate sounds. That's the point.
Yeah,
you can
this
take
is nothing new,
a recording with 100 sounds and use artificial intelligence to isolate specific sounds. And that's all they're doing.
Yes, they can totally filter out Yoko.
Filter out Yoko, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right?
So it's nothing new, as CC's pointed out. I mean, this has been going on since the beginning of recorded music, almost. Certainly since they had the ability to mix things electronically. Enhancement of tracks, reworking of stuff later, live albums being manipulated, which is what I can see this being used for a lot as well. Live albums where the recording of the band isn't that
or
great,
older recordings, exactly. Yeah.
They can pull out the bass a bit, or they can do whatever, clean it up in other ways. It's just a different way of doing it. Not recording. Now, if they said we want the AI to completely record a simulated piano line.
Yeah, they're not doing that here.
Yeah,
no, and that's where we get into a slippery slope, right, CC? I would say.
Yeah, and I would say, yeah, this is not when you go onto YouTube and you say, hey, we used artificial intelligence to record a new Nirvana song, or we recorded a song full of dead bandmates who now have a new song.
Or a good Justin Bieber song, maybe.
Exactly. It's not auto tune. It's not any of that.
I don't even know if a computer could do that.
But Brian's right. If for the video game fans out there, if you don't remember the Rock Band series, the Guitar Hero series. And there was a Rock Band game that was dedicated to the Beatles. And notoriously, the company who was making those games almost bankrupted themselves trying to isolate all the Beatles tracks into individual stems for the game, because the games have the individual stems, right? And that was back in 2008, 2010.
Yeah.
Now you add another 10, 15 years of technology to it, because we're seeing all technology move forward. It's just easier and cheaper now and more effective.
But I'm thinking though that when people talk about AI making songs, it's really not that different from the way that large numbers of hits, as they call them. I don't know.
No, you're not wrong.
And are recorded now.
Oh yeah, the top 40 pop.
Yeah,
tracks
they basically say, give me this beat, give me this rhythm, give me this, give me that.
Well, and here's a great example, actually, Brian, because this is ostensibly what's using like AI, and it's basically almost like an auto tune. But it's making it sound like Michael Jackson singing the song. I hope some of you guys are familiar with this goofy-ass song, and I think it shouldn't get hit, but it sounds just like him.
My duck walked up to the lemonade stand, and he said to the man running the stand, hey, got any grapes? The man said, no, we just sell lemonade, but it's cold and it's fresh and it's all homemade. Can I get you this? The duck said, I'll pass. Then he waddled away, waddle, till the very next day.
See how scary that is?
It
sounds like
you singing.
Michael Jackson, though.
No,
I know, but like it's just weird. I just grabbed that one because it's probably one that doesn't have as many copyright claims to it, but because it's a goofy little kid's song.
But even just your average hit now is, generally speaking, a lot of that music is generated in computer-based technology that's told, give me this beat, this rhythm, these effects at this point, and that can be done already, AI or not. I mean, that's basically what a lot of your producers do.
Well, and somebody who has a strong opinion on AI, Mr. Script Doctor.
Hello.
You just came in after Michael Jackson singing the Duck song.
Oh, I know about that one.
I like the Duck song. Okay, I admit it.
It's
funny.
It does open up many possibilities in because let's take live albums, as I mentioned briefly, not to labor the point, but bands have notoriously always fixed their live albums by adding extra tracks in the studio or replacing vocals that weren't good on the night or whatever. This could be something that's used to do that in an automated basis without the band ever having to go near an instrument, if you think about it. So, but that's just been going on forever.
It reminds me of the whole scrapbooking thing that people were talking about with movies nowadays as well. It's by committee, right?
Yeah. But I'm actually excited about this song, and I'm looking forward to hearing it. The finished article, as I say, they must have some George must have done some work on it in the anthology years. Otherwise, they would have to be faking that, you know. And
I
without
think
George, it's not the Beatles without George. So.
Yeah, if there's a moral question about this new Beatles song, it's really just about whether you believe that it belongs in context, because John Lennon won't have sung those vocals in the context of the new song. But he's not being messed with. He's just being isolated from the original.
Yeah, that's the
recording of him
bigger
and a
point
piano.
here, is that they're using the technology not to create anything, but to separate out his voice so that they can have better control over the sound of the rest of the song.
Yeah,
and
they're
not have to contend
removing
with all the other crap. Yeah,
You mean
they're removing the
demixing it?
piano from the recording and
yeah, he
leaving
already
him
used
there.
that term. Yeah, CC
And-
explained demixing. Yeah,
Yeah, so they're changing the context. Obviously, he didn't sing the song knowing what the final product would be, but bands do that anyways. When vocalists write the vocals and sing the lyrics, it's
Well, I
it's
got to
the order
imagine
in which things are done.
after Real Love and Bird, Free as a Bird came out, that is pretty much like what I figured if all four of those guys were together making those songs. That's probably, and the one they messed with the least was Real Love, and that's the one John had the most written, because Free as a Bird, I think, was only like 2 verses and a chorus. They filled in the rest, if I remember right, because Real Love is actually the whole song, and they just did it as he did it on the recording, if I remember right.
Well, it will be a good
I think
opportunity.
he just added a bridge, and that was it. Sorry, go ahead.
It will be a good opportunity for me on my show on Monday on my channel to ask Beatles roadie Kevin Harrington some questions.
Yeah, I think you can get into that a little bit more there, but it is a slippery
That's a
slope.
big get.
But I think in this point, I think people are misreading the headline.
Yeah.
And I think after you kind of get into the explanation of what they're doing, I don't have any problems with this, because like you guys were just saying, they had to deal with this back for the Rockstar games, but they just recently have been doing this with George Martin's son. I forgot his name. Something Martin.
Giles.
Giles. Yeah. I was gonna say I couldn't remember if it was like Niles or Giles. But yeah, and that's how they've basically done these last couple Beatles remasters, is they've had to go in because they only had the 2 and 4 track recordings for the earlier albums. And one of the yeah, exactly. One of the experiments was they had the 4-track recording for Sgt. Pepper's, and they did a pretty good job with that. But yeah, for those who don't know, what they would do is, in the early days, they would just come in the studio, record the bastard on 2-track, and get the hell out. They wouldn't even usually do more than 1 or 2 takes at most. And that's why there's even mess ups and stuff in the first early albums. But then once you get to Sgt. Pepper, they would start bouncing down the tracks. And what that means is they would record a track, then they record another track, then they would bounce that down to the 4th track, and then that opens them up 3 more tracks. Then they'd re-record more things, and then they'd bounce that down to that track and bounce it down some more. So what you end up having, though, is like that those first few things they recorded ended up being 4th, 5th generation by the time you get to the actual release form. So what they were able to do with this technology is separate those out a little bit more so they could boost up the things that were lower from the earlier recording sessions. So if that makes sense. But yeah,
Something that I learned to appreciate in film school was the soundscapes in movies have sometimes 200 different tracks mixed together.
And that's what really opened up movie soundtracks. Yeah, it was when they were able to mix multiple tracks. Yeah.
And I'm moving a little bit aside from the Beatles here, but I just want to bring that up because you mentioned 2 tracks and 4 tracks, and I think that there is something to be mentioned for.
Well, I believe they were coinciding with movies and music at the same time when they were starting to add more tracks to the mixes. Yeah.
This process can get incredibly complicated, and certainly when you look at that, the sound mixing category in movies, whether or not the Oscars have any value anymore, the process by which the sound in movies that you watch is incredibly, staggeringly complicated.
Well, considering go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Every sound has its own track, right? The soundscape is not. It's not. You're not just putting a microphone in front of a room. You do have room sound, but you're recording every single individual little sound.
Well, that's the beauty of digital.
Bands will do that too. Bands will do that too, especially with industrial and pop, of course.
Well, and that's the beauty of digital, because back in the analog days, as far as soundtracks for movies, you go back to the days of King Kong and stuff, they would have to plan out most of that Foley work, and some of it was all done literally live in the sound mix as they were adding in the music, the sound effects,
Yeah.
and the vocal, mixing it all live on this one track, one track system.
Must have been a lot of fun.
Bouncing it all down, right? And then eventually they got to stereo mixing and stuff like that. And that was opened up a little bit more leeway, because then we had better mixing situations where they could do a lot more mixing. You could actually, go through and mix a sound effects track, mix and time the music track, and then combine them all later on and stuff like that. And then that's kind of where we're at now, is it's very similar with music too, but digital has made it to where you can definitely get a lot more individualized with the sounds, the music, where it's going, how many recordings and tracks you're stacking on top of each other and stuff like that. Sometimes that can hinder the sound. You get way too much.
Oh yes.
It gets too busy.
Oh yes.
And sometimes you want to just find that happy medium. But no, I think that the better sound mixes they've done lately have been where they've used either this technology, or they've actually gone back to the original multi-track mixes and done each track individually, then remixed it digitally. Because then you have each track is at where you can manipulate it a lot easier and better than you're doing it with an analog system, even if you're coming from an analog source. Because at that point, then you have each and everything, you can balance it better, like I was explaining with Sgt. Pepper's. But anyway, we're going to move past the Beatles talk here, because we got some other stuff to discuss. We got a couple super chats here. Says Sergeant Point Blank, the Beatles were pioneers in sound engineering. Yes.
Modern rock recording and music recording wouldn't be what it is today without the Beatles and George Martin. I mean, regardless of whether you like the Beatles, that's a fact.
Who's that weirdo guy that they were going to work with for a while? They built him that whole sound room.
Oh, the Alex, the Magic Alex, the Greek guy. Yes.
That was a flash in the pan.
Yeah, he said he could build them an isolated room just using sound waves to do the isolation, not like traditional
George
studio.
is like, we'd come to the studio and all he had was a bunch of little 1-inch speakers all over the wall.
He said 24 tracks, it was one speaker for each track.
It's like, we didn't know what he had done with our money.
But he did make one thing that the Beatles loved, which was these boxes where the lights would flash randomly. And John loved that. He would stare at it for hours, trying to guess which one was next. So. Magic Alex, and then George Martin took one look at it and went, "Oh my god, this is terrible."
That was during their LSD days, yeah.
Scrap wiring, basically. But
that's what I'd love AI to figure out, is that lost Beatles album that supposedly that they destroyed. Do you ever hear that myth? I don't know if it's true or not.
There's definitely a lot of Beatles myths.
Yeah, I think, as Paul said at one point after an anthology, he said, pretty much everything that's available has now been done.
That doesn't mean that it's available is one thing.
I know there's the sort of electronic soundtrack they did for the Carnival of Lights.
There's that too,
Yep. That's never been heard outside of that, but I don't think there's the big rumor, the money is so good that if there was something in the can, it would be out of the can by now.
Here's the reason, and I'll tell you, for those who may not know the rumor out there real quick. The rumor was when they were heavy into their drug days, this would have been sometime, I believe, post Sgt. Pepper, they supposedly recorded most of an album that was basically unlistenable because it was so experimental. Or maybe it was even before Sgt. Pepper. It was somewhere between White Album and Sgt. Pepper. Because this is when John was really getting into his number 9 phase shit, I guess, from what I'd heard.
Yeah, I mean, I could see them jamming in the studio.
And I guess from the rumor is that it's just a bunch of noise, basically, and supposedly they destroyed it all.
The Yoko album, yeah.
I'd be inclined to believe that, because there's a lot of bands that have unreleased albums for similar reasons or different reasons, whatever it may be.
And if they were high on something, Sorry, CC.
The Chili Peppers, Neil Young, to name
Jeff
two
Beck
off the top of my head.
2 or 3 unreleased albums.
It's very common. Artists will completely finish albums and then move on to the next thing. And by the time
the Beach Boys had a better drug phase. I don't know about that. I mean, they had to sacrifice pretty much Brian over that whole thing, man. He lost it. That was the end of his career at that time. Sadly. I mean, he could still write for them, but he didn't tour again with them till recently. And I kicked myself in the ass too, because I did not know that Brian was back on tour with them.
Oh, he has been for a while. But
I
he
didn't
just-
know that until like the
he
last
just
couple of
sits
years.
at the piano,
And they've come to
yeah.
the Dells for years and years, and I'm like, shit, I didn't know that. I just ignored him because I figured it was.
He's the guy in his pajamas and the beard sitting at the back of the
Hey,
piano.
I don't give a shit. He is the Beach Boys as far as I'm concerned, right? Like, that's the thing. Brian Wilson is the Beach Boys, so it's like without him, it's
It's ironic that he outlived his brothers. I mean,
I know.
You would have thought that would never have happened, but there it is. And yeah,
well, that's
I mean,
maybe why is because he pulled himself away from all this shit.
Hey,
But there's a pretty
John
decent
Lasseter
movie.
is Pixar.
Yeah,
I'm going off again, but there's plenty of The Cure is the singer. He's had a rotating cast throughout his entire career. There are artists and creators who are you just can't do it without them. And there are other times where it's a band. Like the Beatles are all four of the Beatles, but there are other times and cases where it is one person. Like that's why I brought up John Lasseter, and I believe that.
well, there's the
Without,
talent, right?
Yeah,
Like that's why I love that thing you do. And he's like, Tom Hanks is like, it's done, it's over with. And you're like, what do you mean? We still got the rest of us. He's like, the talent just walked out the door.
I mean, the Beach Boys did have a career beyond Brian after he withdrew. Mainly, it just wasn't quite as commercially successful, but they did do some good material beyond his.
They were good at writing pop hits at that point, but Brian still helped them write a lot of that stuff. He was just writing; he wasn't actually touring, or he loved doing recording and stuff like that. But he also had an inner ear problem, which is another issue too. So I think he got past that. I think it was the same thing that was it tinnitus or whatever it's called. Is that what it is? Where you
Yes,
hear
he had that.
Yeah, I think he might have had that.
He had
And so-
that. Yeah.
yeah. To say Huey Lewis just recently got over that shit. Yeah. But anyway, moving on with the super chats, we've got let's see here. I'm going to kind of get ones that are more associated with this. I know we had some earlier ones. We're getting back there though. I'll work my way around back to them. Kind of like Motown. I'm working my way back to you, girl.
Working
Bass
around,
player.
reaching around.
I'm reaching around back to Nick.
Jesus.
The burning love.
The Detroit
inside.
Spinners. I'm surprised you even know that record. The Detroit Spinners, wasn't it? The Detroit Spinners.
Oh, it's Motown, man.
It's That was. a
I'm
big
from
hit in
Wisconsin. You think Motown's that far away, brother?
That's true.
No.
That's true. Yeah.
No, that's shit that's like ingrained in us over here. Yeah. Bass player 2011. If he says, if you want a true feat of audio engineering, look into how the early Motown records were recording. Exactly. And most of those early ones were done in like the basement of a house.
Mm,
Yeah.
exactly.
Quincy and all those guys, they knew what they were doing. And what's his face? The main guy, Barry Gordy, and
Yeah. I mean, there's just sometimes it's the right combination of the right room and the right people. It doesn't have to be high tech. It doesn't have to be. If the songs are there and the talent is there.
Smokey Robinson was a big part of that too, because didn't he write a lot of those songs for a lot of those guys?
He did do not just his own stuff, but a lot of other stuff too. Yeah.
Waltman says some are thinking that BlackRock would be hammering Disney right now, but they're more busy with the idiots blabbering in O'Keefe's new expose right now. Oh wow, yeah, the O'Keefe thing. Anybody got any comments on that?
Just keeps on getting them, but who's listening other than some of us?
I'm always fascinated with the ego of these people that they're willing to disclose such information on a first date because they're so desperate for that, for whatever it is they're getting on the.
I know, right?
The power of the power of.
You think this is gonna get you laid?
Like I'm manipulating half the world. Oh, you're so powerful.
I think to a certain extent, they don't care anymore. They don't care. I mean, they do speak this stuff openly as well. They don't care.
It's almost like a cry for help at some points. But no, I think Scrip's right. I think they literally think it's just going to make the women go, oh, or well, if they're gay, in that case, men go, oh.
I mean, it's catfishing to the nth degree, and I applaud O'Keefe for exploiting it because he's trying to expose, general issues that a lot of people should have grievances against.
The old Mike Wallace days.
I miss good old journalism. I mean, I'm not saying that the media has ever been 100% with us, but they actually used to do investigating and all that kind of stuff. We
Mike
we
Wallace
need
used
the
to do
lowest
this on
lanes.
60 Minutes, but he used to dog people. He was a bulldog journalist there, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, the other part too, it's also the
Like Ralph Nader and those guys too. Yeah.
it's also the reception of the audience. When even in some of the bigger stories that they reported, the audience is kind of tuned out for, which is terrible for society at those times. It basically was conveying to the people that were funding this, like, hey, if these are not the stories that people are watching, we're not going to be covering them anymore. And that's what ended up happening. And that's how you get the industrial media complex that we have today, is where it's a byproduct of our own ambivalence, or at least the generation prior to us is ambivalence to some of the actual serious stories that were being exposed.
How much do you think the 24-hour news cycle had to do with that too?
Oh, absolutely. Because when it first started out, you were getting news stories every hour, but nobody was tuning in for all the other hours, because if it wasn't about them locally,
they want sex and violence. Exactly.
They didn't care. Yeah. And so what they ended up doing is they went to a new model, which was they'll just do all the everything that they could cover that would be hot and interesting over 1 hour, and then they'd repeat that hour over and over again for 24 hours. And that's how come like CNN, what used to be universal across the world when it broadcast, and then it turned into isolation. So you had CNN USA, CNN Britain, CSN France, CNN, all those companies doing it just to maximize
BBCNN.
Jeez.
I'm surprised we never got that.
What does BBC stand for in that case, though?
I don't know. Big black croc.
The script has nailed it, because we've had in the last few years and the decades before major exposés of terrible wrongdoing on the behalf of global powers and authorities, up to and including starting wars under false pretenses, and people just shrug their shoulders. So they're going to shrug their shoulders at a guy from BlackRock saying what he's saying. They'll just like,
the other part of it,
it's just a thing.
The other part of it too, I think this happened, is that a lot of what happened when we turned to the 24-hour news cycle is it also eliminated not just the 6 o'clock type news, where we actually got news, or the expose news where we got like with 20, 60 minutes, those kind of things, Dateline, whatever. It also killed a lot of the daytime talks soap crap shit, to where that stuff also became part of the narrative, right? Like, no longer did you have your Donahues. Even Oprah had, her own network, and she wasn't doing her standard show anymore, where you would normally have a lot of this wackiness that CNN just kind of bombards itself with. Like years ago, we would have had on Donahue, like if Donahue was still around, he'd had SJWs versus white supremacists.
Yeah, he would.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's about as far as this crap would go. Like, it wouldn't really be, because nobody would take either party fucking seriously.
Yeah.
And we need that. And I know that's just a small part of it, but it feels like that is really what happened here. And that's the best I can speak to this thing is, anybody who's actually doing real journalism, I applaud them. So,
yeah. Agreed.
And then on that note, ActionCom says, Script, what do you think of Mr. Big interrogations? Unfortunately, it's illegal here in the States. And what's the difference between that and O'Keefe?
Well, first of all, it is illegal in the States, but the FBI does it all the time.
It's just not illegal when the FBI does it.
It is. Basically what the Mr. Big interrogations are is the authorities create a fictitious organized crime unit, and then they kind of entrap people that are possibly able to commit the crime or suspected of doing another crime similar to try and gain a confession and use that against them.
So it's basically the equivalent of Popeye Doyle asking if you pick your feet in Poughkeepsie.
More elaborate than that, but you're getting close.
Yeah. Well, that's basically what he does. Is he does that because that's the whole thing. It was a known string of rapes, and if you get that, then the guys will be like, "No, I had nothing to do with that, but I did do this," and that's what he would say at first to get him to confess to something smaller. Usually,
it's not through an accusation. It's usually just a long form of like trying to get them to brag about their past jobs that they pulled off.
Oh, okay. So it's more undercover kind of a thing.
It's very undercover. Like I said, they create a fake criminal organization, and which is usually populated by the authorities, and then it's used a recruitment tactic to get people that they suspect have committed.
It's more of entrapment than anything, I guess.
It is, yes. That's basically the technique that's used. Canada, up here in Canada, we don't have Miranda rights, and even in parts of the United States, I think those have been recently altered or changed or reclassified in some case. So yeah, it's a method that is mostly used by intelligence agencies throughout the entire world, and Canada has used it from time to time. It's really is entrapment, but the intention is that they're going after legit people that they have very thin evidence on that supports that they're a criminal or committed a serious crime, and they're just trying to get a confession through them. But they're doing it by essentially entrapping them. However, I don't believe there's been ever a case where the crime being like the fictitious crime that they're planning and being organized is brought as a charge against the person. That's only going after the actual thing that they've confessed to, and not.
So in that case, that's where the loophole is, basically.
I think that's where the loophole is, because they're not charging them with anything else. Whereas with the FBI recently, with some of the people they brought in, they're trying to charge them with actual attempt when they actually haven't done anything, or at least up.
So this is similar-ish, actually more so to like what's his face from Dateline, who would do the pedophile guys.
Well, I mean, for the online thing, where like they're posing as a child,
so technically they can get them for certain things, but they can't get them for the actual crime itself because they never committed it. And then that's where a lot of lawyers were coming after Dateline and the people that were trying to go after them because it was like a form of entrapment. They were arguing
it was a form of entrapment, and the fact that they had there's zero evidence, and even in the background checks for a majority of the people that were interested had no convictions or.
Not saying they're innocent, but
there's not saying they're innocent, just that there's no evidence to confirm that is the case. And this was a form of trying to just expose them to get them on a registry, even though the registry laws are very strict with regards to you have to have had committed and served your time and so forth. But very, very dicey stuff. But yeah, it's
famous.
Showing up at someone's house. I don't know. That's pretty
a famous.
Well,
case
I mean,
was John DeLorean.
Back in the earlier days of YouTube, when they were trying to do those channels, those things initially, there's this one point where an actual kid and his dad showed up because the dad didn't know. Wanted to meet the girl that his son was dating, and they all thought it was an adult posing initially, and ended up just being a kid. And then the dad is freaking out at the guy with the camera crew, is like, "Are you trying to assault my kid?" Because it was a complete role reversal. Because the dad's escorting his son, and she's like, "Okay, it's gonna be a first date with this girl, like they met online."
Oh, okay.
And it was basically just a sting.
Wow.
And the dad was upset. I remember that video circulating.
And then there was the one that somebody mentioned in the chat too about the self-deletion as well. That was another big hit to it. But Chris Hansen has been doing some stuff online, so it's not like he's stopped. But
the big entrapment case I remember is John DeLorean.
Yes,
and he got a not guilty in that one, and that blew up.
But it still ruined his life. Yeah. But yeah. Well, and that's kind of the point of these stupid Chris Hansen things is I think it's a good thing he was trying to do, but at the end of the day, it's one of those things where you're opening yourself up for all sorts of lawsuits.
It would have only worked if he was able to locate and actually have a lot of corroborating evidence to support it, and they just needed to do a final confirmation that this is the methods that this person took. Yeah. And then you'd have the, unfortunately the victims coming forward and saying, yes, this is the person, blah, blah, blah. Like that's how it would technically go in a perfect world. But
in a perfect world, yes. But then ActionCom also points out, no time they pretend to be Don Corleone. I think the criminal thinks he's talking to an equal or superior criminal. Okay, I remember reading something about that. Yeah.
Yeah, or it's just like, oh, you did. We heard you did good at this job. We want to hire you for this or something of that nature, or that type of thing. Building a relationship, friendship, and because there is underground criminal communities and networks.
People have egos as well, right?
Okay, I was just going to say exactly, CC. You're going right where I was headed. You'd be surprised, though, how, look, and this is a really fucked up story. I'll keep it quick. My buddy used to have this really bad habit of picking up strays, right? Like, I mean, people. Like,
like hitchhikers.
Sometimes they weren't so big of a deal, but one time he shows up at my house with this one dude, and he's talking some weird smack about how he's wanted for murder. And I chewed Ryan out for it. And I'm like, dude, even if he's not wanted for it, what the fuck are you doing bringing him to my goddamn house?
Really? I would have been asking how much is he worth and then calling the FBI.
I should have. I just was more like at that point because, I just had a kid and shit. So I kicked my buddy and his friend out before too long. Like, it was like, no, this guy, dude is just super fucking creepy. But he's sitting here bragging about this shit. So as I was getting to this point is like, some criminals are fucking stupid. Actually, most criminals are fucking stupid. And that's why they're criminals in the first place. Secondly, they're dumb enough to do this kind of shit. They are dumb enough to sit there and brag about all the stupid shit they've done because they think it makes them sound cool. Which, going back to point one, they're fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Honestly, 6, at that point, I was leaving it in Ryan's hands, my buddy's hands. I was like, you know what? This is your mess. You deal with it kind of thing. At that point, I was like, just get this guy the fuck out of my house. Like, yeah, I was not happy about that. But anyway, moving on from there, Trenchman says, is James Gunn just watching DC burn at his house? No, in fact,
he's sweeping up all the dust because he's going to rebuild
it. Like, there's been a few people who, have been flat out saying that, they know why he's doing this. A lot of experts, like not ourselves, but other experts in the media industry or whatever, but flat out saying he has to run cover for these movies, right? Regardless of what he really thinks. He may actually hate The Flash, but he can't say that. And we all know
want to get sued by all the stockholders in Warner Brothers.
Well, this is another reason why he's doing as much as he can to telegraph that, yes, there is a demarcation point and Superman Legacy is it. But at the same time, he still has to take charge of what is left to come out here, because this is his job now, is like Script said, to clean up the mess. But if people who are blaming James Gunn for this, I'm like, this is the most ridiculous thing in the world. It's like basically trying to claim that your garbage man came in your house and filled your garbage can up with garbage.
Yep.
It's not his job. His job is to clean up the mess that you put out on the curb. It's not his job to fill up your trash can. He had nothing to do with this Flash movie. At the end of the day, if anything, he just edited a few things out, and that did not stop people from coming to the theater. That's the other excuse that I hate. Is, James messed with the movie, so that's why people didn't come. No, they didn't. They didn't even know about it until after the fact. So what the hell? Sorry, Script, you sound like you were going to say something, or somebody was.
Nope. I mean, that's just the manner of the case. He came in as the ship was sinking. He rescued the important properties, and he's like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to build a brand new ship. That one that's been sailing for 10 years has been taking on water since day one. It's
not a submarine, is it? It's not a submarine, is it?
No, it's a regular boat.
Too soon.
That is too soon. And it's also that very, very tragic. But it is the way.
Yeah.
But then going back to the media part,
apologies.
There's all these other people that suffered in other boats traveling around the same time, and no, the media that did cover it covered it very sparsely, but nobody in the audience picked up on it much, spread it or shared it or made it go viral. Instead, it was the $250,000 ticket to go see the Titanic thing that made the news.
This is another thing I want to address when it comes to James Gunn real quick, and then we'll move on from that point to the other Warner Brothers news we got. Because there's one story I want to get before I lose any of my music, guys. Never forget Batgirl was worse. Yes, people, this bullshit story that Kevin Smith put out there about if The Flash did really good, they were going to do Batman Beyond.
Yeah, right. Which that's a weird. Even if that were true, why is your bargain? You have to accept our garbage, and then we'll give you something good. What kind of logic is that?
That's mob mentality.
Yeah,
Batgirl was Batman Beyond.
Yep.
How many times I gotta say that? Michael Keaton was signed for 2 and only 2. Look at my fingers here. 2 appearances. And only 2 appearances, no more.
Yeah, I can't.
So you cannot, and this is why this is the one time nobody's ever really pressed on me once on this whole idea when I put out there every time that somebody puts a story up. Batgirl is the Batman Beyond movie, kids. Nobody has fought me on that. Nobody has come at me and said I'm wrong.
No, it makes perfect sense.
Historically, not a guy who wants to do extensive contracts. He's made that clear. Even obviously, Marvel Studios has wanted for some things, but he's obviously kept what he's done very limited with them, and that's saying a lot because that company seems to be really good at trying to get anyone to do multi-picture contracts, but they seem to be on very limited, films with him because he's only technically done one, obviously.
And I'm not sure what to think about this Batman Forever thing either. All I can say is this. Either he claims, okay, here's my problem with this. First of all, he claims that he got it from a fan and he did not talk to Warner Brothers about putting this film in his theater to view it, even though he's claiming it's for free. Like other people have pointed out, well, his podcast before the showing isn't.
What film?
Right. He's showing the so-called Schumacher cut of Batman Forever at his Smodcast theater.
Schumacher never got a chance to do it.
He never did. But let me finish here, though. You could technically cut together what is considered an extended cut of this movie that would match the versions that we got from the earlier versions of the script and the earlier latter cuts before it got cut down, from the stuff that's out there and then the DVD and stuff like that, which that's the way he's kind of claiming this would be. That's what it would have to be for it to be a fan cut. But that's not what it sounds like from what he's explaining. He's even saying that there is scenes and stuff in here before they did the ADR of Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey, because Tommy Lee Jones' character, they changed a lot of his performance through ADR, I guess. And I'm like, if they have access to this footage, this is something internal. There is no way a fan got their hands on the original reels or the original soundtracks of the original stuff. It just doesn't work that way. It's either somebody who worked inside of Warner Brothers, or this is something planned, and by the end of the year, we are going to get the extended cut of Batman Forever on HBO Max and on video.
Weird.
Give it to me. I mean, growing up, like Batman Forever was my favorite of the first three.
You know what? Bring it. It'll be better than the Batman. So
well, not only that, I mean, Batman Forever, with regards to the addictive nature of the box and 3D TV and stealing your personal data for, a giant corporation to exploit, is very, very, very prophetic.
I just watched it the other night and it still holds
up.
You're
right.
So
my point is I would love to see this version. I'm not saying anything. My point is I think this is a publicity stunt of sorts, because my point number 2 is he should know this. You can't just publicly display a movie like that, regardless if you're getting paid or not. That is in the old FBI warning, if you read it. Ask a daycare center that tried showing Disney movies a few years back how that worked out for them. It is considered public displaying. If Warner Brothers wanted to sue him, they could sue him into the ground for it. So this feels orchestrated to me.
Or it's like stolen footage, which I doubt would be the case. Yeah.
Exactly. I think what this is script, I think, is actually the early cut before they cut it down and finished off all the final stuff for the theatrical cut.
Me. I mean,
and he said it's 20 minutes because he said it's like 20 minutes longer. And I'm trying to remember how much footage is on the DVD, because I know that has the intro, and it has all that other stuff.
Show me the movie.
Go look at the comic.
That's what I'm saying. Show me the movie.
I want it. You're actually kind of getting me excited. Like, come on.
It's either that. It's one of two things. It's either what Script Doctor and I are saying for the one side of it, is that where somebody just literally took the deleted scenes off the DVD and slapped them into the movie, or this is internal and they are finishing this for a final release.
I hope that's the case. If they have alternate cuts, if they can tighten that product.
That's what I'm saying. For them to have the alternate scenes, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing that's bothered me, because, like, is he being serious about this? Because I don't remember there being any alternate takes on that deleted scenes. It was just mostly like that deleted intro, the bat sequence, and a couple other minor things.
Well, the edit would be reordered to the point where Bruce Wayne's the opening is him meeting Edward Nygma right after Harvey escapes Arkham. Then you have the bat signal. He leaves. And then he doesn't go to see Chase Meridian. He goes straight into the opening act of the film where he's fighting off Two-Face. Like it's all really shuffled around. So the narrative pacing of it will probably be very different, but this content in itself will be identical to it.
I think there's a lot of extra Robin scene too.
I'm a strong believer.
I think it's in the comic adaptation.
I'm a strong believer that the edit can make or break a film. If you have multiple takes of any scene, the vibe, the feel, the way the actors present, and the way you can reconfigure how a story flows.
And
I don't know
how
much they have.
But my point is, I know this just from pure fact of what's out there, what I've seen, what I know of this movie, because I have, like the comic book adaptation and all that kind of business, and I'm pretty sure I had the novel back in the day, because I remember how it opens differently in the comic and the novel.
I've got the draft before Akiva Goldsman got his hands on it.
I think you're probably right. He probably did fucking ruin it, because there's like 3 other names before his, and then then he obviously did a rewrite
before his. He came in for a dialogue polish, and he changed Edward Nygma's original name to Edward Nygma because that was from the cartoon. It was a different name for the Riddler in that.
Okay, so that was one thing. But no, I'd love to get to read through that too, because I mean, other than that, I know there's not that much that makes it quote unquote that different, because they didn't even film some of the shit that Schumacher wanted to put in the movie, like the courtroom scene and stuff like that,
or the love scene between Batman.
I'm looking at the comic adaptation right now. It starts out at Arkham Asylum.
Yep.
And that's the way this cut would start out, basically, Clobby, is you see that Two-Faces had, I think, killed at least 1 or 2 guards or whatever, and then he escaped and he wrote on the wall, "Kill the Bat." And that's all in the deleted scenes.
Yeah, with Renee Auberjonois.
Right, he meets Edward Nygma, like you said before, the fight with Two-Face.
Well, no, he meets Edward Nygma
comic.
is pitching him the box,
Right.
in Wayne Enterprises, and then the bat signal goes off, and then he leaves to go fight Two-Face in the original.
Looking right at it. Yeah, I remember this now. Yeah.
Yeah. The bat signal is not a beeper.
Yeah, that was a post edit thing, or post like a pickup shot.
I love that line though. The bat signal is not a beeper.
It is. It is actually.
It kind of is. Yeah, I was thinking that.
It really
Well, it's
kind of
not
is.
for social calls though.
Yeah.
Richard Gordon.
That's what he should have said. The bat signal is not for social calls.
But
Jeremiah,
it's Eva Goldsman, man. Like, he doesn't know shit.
but then, you know, I blew Sean Stackhouse's mind last night though. I reminded him that Batman Forever is where the nipples started.
Yeah.
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 And the reason
He's
they
like-
went with the nipples is to emulate the armor of the Roman soldier.
Yeah. He's like, how did I not see that? I'm like, because you're distracted by the yellow. They didn't have the yellow behind the bat and Batman.
Mhm.
That's the only excuse I can come up with.
So you're saying strip the Romans frighten their enemies with nipples?
They probably did.
I didn't mind though. See, that's the thing. I didn't mind the nipple costume. The one I didn't like was the sonar suit, which I thought was ugly as sin. And then the one that's even a step uglier is the silver suits that everybody wears at the end of the second one. I hated Robin's suit in Batman and Robin as well.
Oh,
The
Well,
George
that's the
Clooney
Nightwing
suit.
with a cape.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the only thing the George Clooney one, I think the only thing I don't like about it is it doesn't have the yellow behind the bat. That's my
Also
only
doesn't have the
gripe.
yellow utility belt. That's cool.
Yeah,
That's
that
like
too.
contrast to
Well, and they stopped using that during Batman Forever, I believe.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, yeah. Trust me, when it comes to the
I don't
costumes,
know.
I can
The
tell you.
silver,
I can tell
the
you by looking
silver
at
on
the
those
cowl.
suits. Ooh, I don't know. The silver on the later half of that movie, their suits.
Oh, they're horrible.
I did not
Yeah,
like
they
the
are.
silver. I thought that was
No, I know. I'm talking
horrendous
about the
to
suit
look at.
before that, because through 90% of the movie, George Clooney wears one bat suit. Because people,
And had the most-
I think people misremember Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, because Batman has the same amount of suits in both movies.
Yes,
He wears the
that
same
sounds
suit
right.
through 99% of Batman Forever until the very end, where he puts that stupid sonar suit on. And then in Batman and Robin, he has that same suit on until the last 20 minutes or so of the movie, so almost last quarter of the movie.
It's like the Mr. Freeze scanty suit type of thing.
Yeah, yeah, it's this silver thing, and it looks too bulky, and it even has this weird like silver color to it, and it's just bleh, bleh. The regular one was fine outside of not having the yellow to break things up. I agree with script. You have to have the symbol and the belt. It helps.
Wait, does Bat Tom's suit have nipples too?
Of course it does.
Yes.
Hard ones. My
Silver
nipples
ones.
are always
Silver
hard.
ones. Silver ones. Tassels.
No, it's a beautiful thing to have nipples.
Bat tassels.
And-
Yeah.
And thank you for the pro raid from Jeremy Hembry and everybody else there. Thank you so much. Trenchman says, would a Batman Beyond movie even work, even if it wasn't made by Wokewood? Because it could, but I fear it might be too niche for modern audiences. I think it could. It's just you got to get the right people behind it and the right mentality behind it.
I think if you were to do a Batman Beyond today, even if you were to do it faithful to the cartoon, you'd probably get a lot of pushback saying that, well, Batman just hid away. He's trying to die. Like all the arguments that you would get with like Flynn and Conan and Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker.
which is actually
all that
why I've
stuff.
never been a fan of the story to begin with. Script. to
Oh
be
yeah,
honest.
I think the entire inciting incident for why Batman gave up in that cartoon was completely bogus.
Agreed.
Well, that just goes along with my whole idea of I don't like characters like that. I mean, I don't mind them once in a while as an also ran kind of story, but like I'm just not a fan. These are cartoon characters, basically. They don't have to age. I don't understand.
Agreed.
Like you don't have to make them old. Batman's 30 forever.
I just want Dick Grayson to become Nightwing already. I guess that's too much asked. I know the Titan show does not count. That never happened.
See,
I don't
now
wanna
I'm to
talk
the
about
point
it.
where, to me, in my world, Nightwing doesn't really exist. Batman and Robin is Dick Grayson and Bruce Wayne.
And that's
That's it.
fair. I can
Mhm.
understand that. It's just for me. I love Grayson as Nightwing. Dude, he's still my favorite Robin, but I love him as Nightwing.
No, there's DC have managed to get away competently with certain evolutions of the characters. They were able to
Yes.
pull that off competently. The thing that I think we're missing in the zeitgeist of media, live action wise, is that we really have not had a dynamic duo
True.
like a good representation of the dynamic duo since the 60s.
And that's what I've said before too, Script, and I'm sure you've been around when I have, and I agree, because that's the thing is, as much as I like Batman Forever, it's like that's not Batman and Robin, that's Batman and Nightwing or Young Man. Like it's not Robin, right? He's not a
Robin
boy
wasn't.
wonder.
He wasn't the best in that. In the animated series, certainly didn't.
I mean, I like
much
Chris
as I love it.
O'Donnell, and I mean it makes, and I understand why they did that. You're not going to
remember
believe have a kid that young on screen, right?
Well, the thing is,
In
they were
Forever,
not going at it at an angle to try and make it believable, because here's the other part too. It goes back to what John Lasseter said, what I have said before: sell the audience on this world, and they will believe the actions that you put before them.
100%, yes. And that's the thing is, from the world of Batman and Batman Returns, I couldn't buy a young Robin in it, right? I couldn't buy a young Robin in that world. The older Chris O'Donnell and the way they kind of switched the tone with the Schumacher verse makes that completely believable. I don't know if it would have still been as believable with a 12, 13, 14-year-old Robin. That's a different argument.
Do you want to know why you probably couldn't believe it from Burton's verse? Is because Batman himself as a character in those movies did not do enough fantastical stunts to allow you to believe and that a child acrobat, able to do the same, maneuverability that Batman can would be a compliment to the character in that world. Batman in the Burton films, he walked, he was silent, he had his gadgets, and he did very quick, calculated attacks and then car chases. He never did backflips. he
that didn't come till Schumacher verse, right?
Yeah. Like one of the coolest shots in Batman Forever is when Chris O'Donnell's about to get his butt kicked after beating up some of those thugs in the alleyway, and then you just see Val Kilmer's Batman on the top of the roof, and he drops down, he opens up his cape, and he just kind of glides ever so carefully.
You don't have to do shit
down. But Batman, they start running. Like, that's a pretty cool, simple stuff. That's a great thing.
No, absolutely, I agree, and you're right, and frankly, that's kind of part of it. And Schumacher's version of it, I could buy it more, but you can also tell Schumacher definitely grew up watching the Batman 66 series, and I especially see that now in Batman Forever and Batman and Robin.
Batman Forever, just not as bad as it is in Batman and Robin.
Remember Warner Brothers' mandate for those two movies is like, make them more comic booky, make them more family friendly, and he's just like, well, my interpretation of that was like, let's do what we can do with regards to the old 60s Batman. And
well, he made sure they had that dynamic, even though they threw in a little bit of the competition kind of thing, but yeah,
he just went too far with Batman and Robin. That's all.
That's all Akiva Goldsman too.
I really hate saying how much I fucking enjoyed that movie last night.
Wow.
Like Batman and Robin has some charm to it, but it's a horribly written film.
It is, and really, it's like I'm watching this again last night, and I'm like, God, why do I enjoy this so much? This is horrible.
The editing in that movie gave me a headache.
It does in some bits.
It's very jarring. I will say this though, Michael Goff, who does Alfred, was really did not phone in performance at all. He gave it his all in that one.
You know, honestly, Script, to be honest with you, I think that's what grounds the movie. I think you're 100%. Especially the bits between him and Clooney, because there's not even a lot of dialogue.
No.
Right? It's just that understanding. And especially when it's raised by Alicia Silverstone with the whole, this life of servitude, that's no life at all. And it's like, you don't have any clue. And then when she finally sees
happening.
that. Yeah. And then when she finally sees the video that Alfred made for his brother, that whole thing, that whole bit, I liked it, even though I hated, like I'm sure Clobby did, hated that they made Batgirl. But in the idea of the family thing, in retrospect, it's a better, in hindsight, it's a better change to the character than making Joker the killer to Bruce's parents. If you think about it,
that was terrible.
Because it makes more sense that Alfred's niece would become Batgirl than it does for Commissioner Gordon's daughter. Daughter to become Batgirl. I was thinking that last night. I know what you're saying, Clobby, but I was thinking that last night.
I'm with
like,
Clobby
you know what?
too on that one.
That's one change though that I don't mind as much, because and this comes from script, and I'll probably understand, because coming from a movie standpoint, you have to make it work within the confines of the movie, and they made it work in the confines of the movie. Plus, the age they have Commissioner Gordon, there's no way he's going to have a daughter that young.
A 20-year-old daughter.
Exactly. Actually, I think she's playing more like 17, 18, ain't she?
No,
'Cause
she's
she's in
basically
college.
a
She's
student
in
for
college,
Oxford. It's so she'd be like,
College level. Yeah.
Yeah, I just forgot because I remember at the end he's like, "You're going to college," or it's like he meant back.
You are
to
going
school.
back to school. Yeah.
Mr. Freeze was my favorite villain in the whole Batman universe growing up. And as I mentioned, after Batman Forever, which I did really enjoy, I was really hyped for Batman and Robin, and that's probably why I was so disappointed with it. And I haven't come back to it since. I should rewatch it like you did and see how I feel about
Uma
it.
Thurman has been the one who really kind of didn't her performance aged the worse. Worse than Schwarzenegger's.
Worse than Schwarzenegger?
Yeah, because Schwarzenegger's fits.
Man,
Schwarzenegger's
I don't know
fits.
if I agree or disagree.
Let me explain. Let me explain you why, and this is why. Because I have not seen this movie in at least a decade, right? At least, if not more, because I've only seen this movie maybe 2-3 times in my entire life. I don't think I even bought it on video. To be honest with you, I'm stretching to try and remember if I ever had the video of this. I don't think I did, because I'm pretty sure the only time I ever bought it, the first time I ever bought it, was because of the 4-pack of the movies, and I was forced to buy. Otherwise, if they wouldn't have had all 4 of those movies as the special editions when they brought them out, because I remember, I think if I had the DVDs before that, I didn't buy Batman and Robin. I just bought 1 through 3. That's it. So when I replaced them, I got stuck with the 4-pack. Same thing with the Blu-rays, and now the 4Ks as well. But now I'm watching it this time out, and I'm like, Mr. Freeze fits the universe. This is a fucking cartoon through and through. It is definitely the 60s Batman movie, right? It's like, if you ever were going to imagine, we're going to make a movie based around the 60s Batman series, Batman Forever and Batman and Robin are it.
Yeah, that's true.
And he does have the best lines. Schwarzenegger has the best lines, I think.
He has a great turn in it. Uma is good in it, but she's almost...
Well, she's lovesick over Schwarzenegger.
Yes, but I'm trying to think of the way to explain her performance. It's campy and hammy, but it's not in the same way that Schwarzenegger
it like Girl Friday.
Yes.
She's playing it like Girl Friday, a femme fatale Girl Friday type. After she changes, before she changes, when she's like going back and forth between her and John Glover, which was actually kind of fun, silly stuff. She is this neurotic, desperate, crazy eco scientist, and then she turns into this
Glover's doing it right.
Glover was Floronic Man, but he never becomes the Floronic Man.
No, but he was doing it right. See, that's what I'm trying to get at. She's not quite getting she's there, but she's not quite there yet with the rest of them. Like Clooney gets it.
She's like Demi Moore in Striptease. Everybody else knows this is a comedy. Demi Moore's playing it straight like it's a serious drama.
And then the other problem is her character is too much Jim Carrey, Ray Do from the first movie, only with a chick. Like they really should have come up with a different setup for her. It feels like we're playing the same exact beat for beat story. Like if you think about it,
Two-Face is acted like Jack Nicholson.
Kind of. But what I mean is this, Clobby. Edward Nygma, he's obsessed with Bruce Wayne. He thinks that Bruce will understand him and take his 3D TV thing seriously. When he's rejected by him, that's when he snaps, kills his boss, becomes the Riddler. Poison Ivy, somewhat obsessed with Bruce Wayne, thinks if he hears her plan, she'll understand. Gets rejected by him, goes and kills her boss, becomes Poison Ivy. It's the exact same thing.
No, it's not. You're actually missing the whole beat. She has no idea that Bruce Wayne pulled their funding. She's betrayed by Dr. Woodrow. She kills him, and then she presents her plan to... she's already become Poison Ivy. Then she presents her plan to Bruce Wayne, and he says, well, the nobles are good, but no fossil fuels for heat. People would die of cold and hunger. He's like, but it'll save the planet. And he's just like, people come first. And then she's already committed to the eco-terrorism by this point.
That's true. You're right. It was the part about the funding getting cut that happened in between there. I missed, yes. And then I flip-flopped that.
Spider-Man 3 thing going on,
because
too.
Woodrow was a lunatic. He's like, oh, you met him? He's like, yes, I have. Like, that exchange alone was actually comedic brilliance.
Yeah.
Woodrow is supposed to be the Floronic Man in comics.
Okay, but still, minus that one little tweak, they are basically the same fucking character. Really, at the end of the day, until she actually becomes, and they start to do their little back and forth, and then it becomes a reversal on the Penguin and Catwoman, because she's obsessed with him instead of him being obsessed with her. Other than that, though, I actually enjoyed it this time. That's what I'm still trying to say. Because even though it has a lot of issues, it does. It
I don't
definitely
think I,
does.
I don't know if I could do
There's
it again.
bad movies that you can
Yeah.
enjoy.
It went from
Indeed.
like a 4 or 5 in my book up to like a 6.
Yeah. Tom, buddy, I'm just going to
That
drop.
sounds like a
That's just
challenge.
the
just
world
gonna
lowering your
drop out,
bar
buddy.
of quality. That's what it is.
70s.
Well, here's
Yeah.
the thing. There's so many movies to me. There's only so many that are a 10 out of 10 script. We're talking
there's very
Goodfellas,
few.
Jaws, stuff like that. Then when you get to that 7 to 8, 9 area, that's like the really good shit, you know? And then when you get to that 6 area, that's when you're getting to like, it's good, but
Well, that's called passable.
yeah,
Like,
exactly. It's
if
good
you're
enough
between
to
5 and 6
watch.
is passable. 4 is like you gotta.
6
it's
is
gotta
in the
have a-
area where I'll
gotta have
still
some
watch
really
it
good
again, though,
nudity in it.
script. That's my point. My point is after this viewing, I would watch this again. Back
I
then,
think
like, I only watched it this time just kind of out of, like, obligation to watch all 4 movies.
I will say the Schumacher's director's commentary on Batman and Robin is absolutely brilliant. It's
Well,
really
and that
good.
plays into it this time, too, between then and the last... Well, of course, I knew that then the last time I watched it, because that's the only reason. At first, I just watched the making of shit. I didn't care about the movie itself. And then after I heard him apologize for it in the making of it, I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to watch this movie again. And that was the last time I watched it, and even then I was still like, no, it's still shit. But thanks for apologizing, you know? Like,
Is it better than The Flash?
Yes.
Of course
yes!
it is.
Oh,
Here's
yeah.
Exactly, right?
Well, here's the
That's
thing.
why it's a 6.
It's
not a
better
4.
than the Batman.
Despite all the flaws,
Oh,
that are
way
in-
better.
Yeah. Despite all the flaws that are in Batman and Robin, it has a very coherent story. You understand what each player in the movie wants and why they want it and what they're willing to do to get it.
Yep.
You don't get that with some of the more contemporary superhero
And you
films.
get that great stuff between Bruce and Alfred, too. And it
And a
connects...
resolution. You get a proper resolution.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually,
Right.
it feels like a great ending for the movie because they got their little bat family now. It's like, okay, I don't need any more of this shit. They start having other more bat people in the movie. I'm done. It's like it was a great
Tom,
ending.
briefly,
We're
I'm
done.
going to drop. I just wanted to thank you.
Yeah, go
for-
ahead, your supper,
for-
man.
Thanks for having me on. Thanks to the
Well,
rest
before
of the
you go,
panel.
because this is the next story here. What do you feel about this Warner Brothers business? Did you hear about this? The $500 million deal to Sony for some of their music rights.
Yeah, well, this is there's still big money in this. I mean, you've got bands like Queen selling their rights now for there's a lot of money to be made, but it seems like I mean, they're splitting stuff that they may want later. Maybe there's some regret could happen. I don't know.
Yeah, you're actually 100% right. There are certain music that they own with certain franchises that they have that they are rebooting and pursuing future development with. They should not ever want to part because guess what?
Yeah.
We'll get into this. Yeah.
Variety it speculates on selling like maybe some of the Batman music and backlogs Prince's catalog, and it's like James Gunn's probably going to want some of that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
we'll get into
could
that.
regret
yeah.
it. They may regret it, I think. But I mean, there's big money to be made in music rights still to
and
this
500
day.
million is very low,
Hmm.
given the
Well,
music
that's what
right
makes
library
me
they have.
Well, I
Yeah,
don't know. Queen are
Wonder
selling
why
their
they're
catalog
doing
for
this.
a billion. So
That's just it. That's the thing right now, isn't it? Right? I mean,
Yeah.
Brian, is a lot of these guys are selling their whole lock and stock and barrel
yeah.
self-image and everything. Oh, we just lost 6, I think. But you know, like before you go here, yeah, like I just was curious what you thought about it. But
I would
check out
do it.
70s Rock Fans channel. You got the Beatles
Yeah,
roadie
Monday,
coming up, you said.
my show on Monday, my It's Only Talk and Roll show at 3 p.m. on my channel on Monday, 3 p.m. Mountain Time, is with Beatles roadie Kevin Harrington, who was the red-headed guy. If you watch Get Back and Let It Be, he's the red-headed young guy wondering about setting up amps and.
I will
bringing
try to
cups
get
tea.
to that one, brother. I promise. I can't
Well, you're
guarantee it,
welcome
but I
to-
will try.
You're welcome to join, of course, mate. But yeah, it's going to be a fascinating talk because he didn't just work with the Beatles; he worked with Derek and the Dominoes, the Stones, and later on
Oh,
you get bands
dang.
like Judas Priest and Motorhead. So
That's a
yeah, he had a
great
long
guy.
career as a tour manager, road manager. So it should be a fascinating discussion. But thanks, everyone. Have a great night and see
you
you
got to
all
ask
soon.
him if he met
All right,
Beavis
buddy.
and Butthead's dads.
Oh, I will then.
How do you know he's not?
He might be one of them. How do you know? Yeah, exactly.
I was
you
in
know-
this place called Highland once. I scored with 2 chicks at the same time.
Well, these guys have got a lot of great stories. I've done a lot of stuff with a lot of veteran road managers recently, and they've always got the best stories. Some of which they can't really tell the way they'd like to, but, you know, for various reasons. So, but yeah, thanks everyone. Have a great night, and see you all soon.
Take care, bud.
Cheers. Bye bye.
And Tom is still muted.
Sorry about that. I was messaging in the background there. All right. So we got this Warner Brothers news, and before we get too deep into the script, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sure you have a lot to say about this, as I do too. But I just wanted to get through the story first, just so we kind of have an idea of what they're talking about here, because this is a pretty big deal. But I think that you're right about the number being low. That makes me wonder what assets, because I think a lot of these are, from reading through this, I think they're more speculative. But we'll find out here. Warner Brothers is negotiating to sell around half of the storied Warner Studios film and TV music publishing assets for approximately $500 million. Three sources confirmed to Variety the news was first reported by Hits. Never heard of Hits, but I'm assuming they're music related from the name of it. While it's unclear exactly which assets are on the table. See, that's what I was saying. This is more or less them just speculating.
It is speculating.
One source.
$500 million's not a lot.
500 million is like 2 artists.
That's what I was thinking too. Like, this can't be, because, like, first of all, nothing new is worth a shit anymore, guys. I mean, I wanted to get through this, but it doesn't even matter now. We might as well not even finish. This is all speculatory shit. All we know is they're selling $500 million worth of music. It could be fucking shit from like Teletubbies and crap for all we know. I don't know what they own.
It could be something from the Warner archive from the 50s when almost
that nobody gives a shit anymore about. Exactly. But I highly doubt they're going to be selling anything Prince. No fucking way in hell.
One song
not
from
for
Prince
that
would
much.
be $250 million.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, there's no
right?
fucking way. Prince, how much did you say? I think it was what, was it 1 billion? I think it was that Tina Turner sold her shit for. CC, do you remember?
I don't remember, but it wouldn't surprise me. That's why I say 500 million must be secondary.
What
content.
you just were talking about the Queen earlier? What are they looking for?
Prince's Lemon Crush could probably get net you 250 million, and that's
I know, but I'm actually trying to get an actual close number here. What are they looking to sell the Queen whole thing for?
The Queen catalog and rights for?
Yeah,
gosh,
because that would be comparable.
I would say that would be a couple of billion.
That's what I would think too. And that's what I'm saying. No fucking way are they partying with anything Prince. Even soundtracks. Like, that's the thing. And this is what I was going to get to. A lot of new music is not worth a dick anymore. So the only thing they have that is worth anything is a lot of these catalogs. And soundtracks are one of those few rare places where, there's kind of a niche market for it. You can license this shit out. In fact, I just finally got my hands on a couple of years back here, from the original 2 Burton films, Danny Elfman's full complete score for the first time ever. They'd never released all the entire whole thing. Now we have it. There's
like 40 songs,
a market
right,
for this.
total?
It's 3 CDs, I think, altogether.
Yeah.
For both movies.
So you know what they might be selling? They might. Does Warner Brothers have AC/DC? Because a lot of the AC/DC songs are sold for very cheap.
I think that's Avco.
If it's Avco, okay, then. But again, it'd be something.
But that's the problem. Here's the other problem.
It'd be the most overused songs in movies that they don't get a whole lot of money for. They probably were getting rid of those.
My point is this, though, because here's the thing. You only have 3 companies now that own all the music.
Yeah, I know. Courts
you
are
have
very
Sony,
upset about that.
Universal, and Warner. And this is another thing. Like, I ain't even going to let this sale go through, because supposedly Sony's the one that's looking at this. This would make Sony even more powerful already
The only
than they already
way I can see this being pulled off if it's a trade, essentially, where Warner's gives Sony's things that they want, and Sony in exchange gives Warner's things that they want.
Well, and Warner traditionally has not been good to even license their own music into movies. In fact, for those who don't know, they're one of the more notorious ones for changing the music out. National Lampoon's Vacation is one that comes to mind right away. It's never been released on home video with the original music on it. I mean, the original theme song for the beginning's on there, but during the part with the Christy Brinkley in the original movie, it's "I'm So Excited" by the Pointer Sisters.
Yep.
They own the Pointer Sisters music.
Yeah.
It's not in the movie. Like, what the hell? They have some other song by some other group that's probably 10 times cheaper. My point is this. Why are they doing this? This makes no sense. Script is 100% right. It makes a hell of a lot more sense to hang on to this catalog, because you'll make a lot more money in the long run, no matter what it is, even if it is the older stuff they don't really use anymore, because there's always a place where it can be. And you never know. With music rights, that's where the money is right now, right, CC? Because I can't see any other way to make music and make money anymore, because YouTube is where most of these guys got to start. I mean,
and a lot of the music is artificially generated through looping and samples, and there's not many people that do actual instrumental stuff, and if they do, they're very difficult to find.
It strikes me at the moment that music and movies are in the same way. When you look at the box office results of recent movies, they get that big first weekend hit and drop off a cliff because they're made for temporary results, not timeless results. And a lot of music of the last, say, decade has that, where it's big for a very short period of time. You get millions and millions of plays. Like you get that first weekend at the box office. And then if, 5 years later or 10 years later, it's just not relevant anymore. And there's definitely a difference between timeless content and forgettable content. So I do wonder, I as you say, I wonder what they're doing with this. Why even bother selling anything that you can use? Video game fans in the audience will know this too. It's when songs are licensed to video games and the license runs out, any re-releases of those video games like Grand Theft Auto, Grand Theft Auto series, when you turn on the radio in your car when you're playing the game, if the license has run out for the game to be able to play that music on the radio in your car when you're playing the game, they have to take the music out of future releases of the game, right? So
yeah, you're right. Games are big for licensing music too. You're right about that.
Yeah, they're huge.
Yeah, this term doesn't make any sense to me unless this is like a bunch of industrial music they don't use anymore or something like that. I don't understand the point of this. And by industrial music, I don't mean like the industrial music style. I mean like stuff for like stupid videos and shit, like making of videos and stuff like that.
And it's such a lowball number for such a. I mean, again, if the rumors are true, which I think they're being embellished, that they have to like pay down like $50 billion in debt. 500 million is too small of a drop for the assets value that what they retain.
And looking at this now, okay, here's where we got in between here. I was way off on Tina Turner's. It was 50 million. It looks like it was sold for. Okay, so that's
Really?
Tina Turner.
That's a bargain.
Yeah, it is. But Queen now, they're looking for a cool billion. So that kind of puts it in the ballpark. We kind of know where we're at. So you're right. Prince's catalog is not going for under $1 billion.
Yeah, no way.
No fucking
Didn't
way.
they just re-release some of his stuff? That the estate just re-released some stuff that he had never released before.
They have enough stuff that they could release shit for the next few years. And then some.
And then some. Yeah.
I mean, they said like initially it was like 80 years worth of stuff, but not all that stuff's finished, I guess, from what I've been hearing. But go ahead.
It is certainly possible they're getting a good deal on this, that whatever they're selling is not worth 500 million.
Which means it's probably stuff the majority of people will never recognize.
Yeah. And this could lead us down a whole another rabbit hole. But we've moved from physical media to digital media, and you've seen that also in streaming. We used to go to the store to buy things, and music is exactly the same way. We used to go to the local music store to buy a CD or a vinyl record, and now the profit in it is in streaming. When people go onto YouTube to listen to a song, there's an ad that plays before the song, and that's the revenue. It's also the relevance. When someone makes a viral TikTok video and it gets 1 billion views, that song was not worth 1 billion views, but it was used in a meme. And there are forward-thinking artists like the band Yes, for example, who love to just let their music be used in every viral meme video that anybody wants to put it in. They're not trying to profit off of, the music strictly. They're looking to profit off of people finding their music and realizing it exists and putting it into popular culture. And one of the issues with the Beatles is they're what's known as a blocked band, and Prince is the same. Artists that are still completely blocking themselves from being used anywhere on platforms like TikTok or YouTube, where only the artists themselves can authorize that music to be played on any instance anywhere. So if it can't be viral,
Eagles are another great example. Yeah,
the Eagles are one of the strictest examples of that. And when you look at Google Trends for these artists, they're going down. The Beatles are becoming less and less relevant every year.
And they just finally made their deal with Apple here a little while back. Yeah, and I agree with you. It might have been a little too late.
And the reason I'm going off on this run is to suggest that maybe what they're selling is stuff that has more value in viral marketing than it does strictly for them to own the usage of it that they license themselves.
Yeah. Well, I can guarantee, like with this amount, 500 million, it could be some things that are worth some money. But I'm just curious because I would think in licensing they've got to be worth more than that. And some of this stuff, because why else would Sony want their hands on it?
It's true. I mean, if you can license it, you can license it for money forever, anywhere.
Yeah.
You know?
There's a lot of money in music licensing. That's what I was trying to say before, going back to your point, CC, because the standard music like industry does not work like it used to. It used to be, you would get yourself going as a band, you do a bunch of live shows, cut yourself a demo. Hopefully you'd find, a scout or an agent or whatever that would work for one of the record companies or know one of the record companies and get you involved. And it would be like a lower level. Then you'd work yourself up to a bigger company that owned that smaller company. And it just kind of worked that way. And eventually then you would get the big bucks and you'd sell out the arenas and you'd make all your money on tour. Exactly. Nowadays you got to be self-made for the most part. And there really is no record industry anymore. It's all about getting yourself out there and self-touring. Yeah, go ahead.
You also have to be a lot more business savvy. You can't just be good at making or trying to be good at making music. You have to also be business savvy, because if there's one thing that I've learned, especially on the metal side of things, lots of, we'll just say, bands whom I like were admittedly very gullible, and they took a lot of bad deals. Obviously, alcohol and drugs don't help with that, but a lot of them took bad deals, got dropped, didn't get proper promotion, didn't get on good tours, and a lot of them are now having, I guess you could say, second wins because of websites like YouTube, which, once again, one of the pros of YouTube. A lot of newer kids are like, hey, who's this band? And then they look at it, oh, wow, they had a bad history in the late 80s, early 90s, and they quit and call it a day. And then some of them get together because they form a second fan base because of YouTube. But yeah, no, you have to be business savvy nowadays. And some people like Eric July's band, Backwards, which is a metalcore band, they operate independently mostly. They didn't put out their album on a label. They self-released it, and it seems like it worked out for them because they're opening for bigger bands. But when they're opening for bigger bands, some of those bands are still touring in like let's just say vans and RVs, which RVs obviously a step up above a van, but Backwards comes rolling up in a nicer vehicle, and they're the opening band. That makes it a bad look for the headliners, and just goes to show you how screwed the system is with the labels, because it's just a whole extra host of middlemen. So, not saying all companies are bad. There are some companies that are better than others, but a lot of the music industry is people who like to collect money and get a cut of what you do, whereas Backwards definitely played it very smart, and they get as much money as they could. Obviously, there's parts where they have to submit, but they try to get as much as they can out of it.
You also have the fact that a lot of record companies, especially through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, as popular as the bands that they represented were, hated the party mentality and the amount of insurance that they had to pay out and stuff out of pocket for all the party mentalities that they were going through as well.
TVs
when they started
flying through the hotel windows.
Damaging of equipment on stage, what have you, to various degrees. What ended up happening to the benefit of the record labels was like all these people that are doing self-made stuff over on YouTube and other social media platforms are like, oh, we can actually control them a lot easier now because they don't have that. They don't have. We can just cut back on what they would normally get on a tour, because we can argue, well, you're from YouTube, you're not from the clubs or the other scenes that these guys are. You got to build your way up there, and they can hold it off and delay it even more so. And because the career life of those stars is not usually any longer than a handful of years comparatively to the previous rock bands, because again, they're using auto-tune, they've got overproduced and industrialized lyricists writing their songs for them. They're basically making a coordinating effort to make sure that these people are only going to be hot for a handful of years so that it can be quickly disposed of, and they can just bring in another voice to pick up the baton, so to speak, and go the next so many set of years. You don't have these legacy bands anymore. And that's to the benefit of the record companies and to the detriment of ourselves, because the thing that we love with our musical artists is that ideally they get better with every album. And that happens because they have a sustainable career that they're able to tour on. They're able to experiment with what they're doing in their music. They're able to listen to the reception of their fans and engage what direction to go and produce what they want to. But you don't get that when you're overproduced and completely isolated from your audience, because the whatever record companies are still around are overly controlling the talent.
Well, speaking of overly controlling, that actually somewhat leads into our next topic, because they would groom these artists basically.
Yes.
In a lot of ways.
And
for
the
a lot
traditional
of things.
word, not the abusive word.
Not the abusive word, but the actual traditional word.
Right.
And part of that also came on the other side of things. Payola has been a part of the music industry forever.
Yeah.
Regardless of what form it's taken, it has never left the industry. And that is a big part of it. It's also still supposedly a part of the movie industry. Here we go. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but Warner Brothers has been accused of payola for positive reviews of The Flash. This comes
Where was my check?
Yeah, right? This comes from Bleeding Fool. DC's long-threatened film adaptation of The Flash debuted this past weekend to average mostly meh reviews. A very disappointing B cinema score, tying it to the worst reviewed of the DC EU films. This is in stark contrast to the months of hype marketing that saw The Flash heralded as one of the greatest superhero movies ever filmed.
You know what? They might be talking about the expense. Like, was it expensive? It was the greatest superhero movie ever.
Yeah.
Let's keep going here. Let's keep going here. But yeah, Bleeding Fool goes on. But now that it's been widely released, The Flash is going to be a financial catastrophe for Warner Brothers and DC Studios, just in time for their anticipated DCU revamp. Well, there's technically another almost 2 years for that, so let's not get too hasty with that. But anyway, this is reassuring for those who believe that the early praise for the David Zaslav, James Gunn, Tom Cruise, Jaden Smith, and Kevin Smith, among others, in light of the low scores and bad reviews, many people may be scratching their heads. It's one thing for the studio heads like Zaslav and Gunn to promote their interests, but Smith, King, and Cruise, what's going on here? I don't remember Jaden Smith. Who gives a fuck what Jaden Smith thinks? That's why I said Kevin Smith, because I know he did too. Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, they got some tweets here from an individual named Gavin Feng, who says, China has been widely accused of paying critics and social media influencers for good reviews of The Flash by local audience on the past weekend. Many people are saying they'll never ever believe any positive reviews and reactions of any Warner Brothers movies. For the record, local audience actually really liked The Flash with 8.1010 on Douban's site, but the one of the best superhero movies ever claim have been criticized by fans, haters, and trolls, especially in a time when Guardians 3 got an 8.5 out of 10, while Spider-Verse 2 has an 8.6 out of 10, or a 2 out of 5. Since no developed critic system, since there is no local developed critic
system, local distributors strictly control critics, even ticket sites like what is that? Mayon? Or for gibberish. Both are also part of their distributing parent companies. It's hard for critics to give real bad reviews if they see movies before release.
Yeah, Warner Brothers China has done many press screenings for The Flash since later April. Lots of positive comments come out at that time. But public didn't really believe it because those reviews all look the same. Instead of helping the movie, fans believe it caused damage. Okay. So, according to CosmicBookMovie.com, they report that Gavin Feng, a Chinese box office expert, claims that Warner Brothers China has been charged with paying Chinese reviewers and social media influencers in exchange for favorable reviews of The Flash. Freedom of speech isn't exactly something China is known for, so critics struggle to share negative reviews at the best of times. However, what came across as fake praise for The Flash from the aforementioned influencers and critics has soured DC fans and discouraged them from buying tickets this weekend. Savvy moviegoers wary of DCEU after a rough few years clearly didn't buy into the possibility The Flash was as good as some people claimed, while critics being bought in the US isn't a realistic possibility. Yes, it is. since when isn't? We know social media reactions can't be trusted, as those getting to see movies like this one early tend to get caught up in the excitement are or are keen to see their names in a TV spot. I mean, do they think it is a possibility? Like, I don't get that point. Not sure, unless they're being sarcastic with it being Bolden. I don't know. Not sure why comic book pages Josh Wilding thinks the idea of a critic in the US being a shill is unrealistic. There's little doubt that social media influencers and bots with bad grammar have been shilling for this dud. For what it's worth, The Flash has not yet been labeled a box office failure in China despite the uproar. The numbers reveal that The Flash maintains a good Dalbin rating of 8.0 out of 10, indicating that this Warner Brothers film is still doing well with viewers. Meanwhile, The Hollywood Reporter claims that the film is off to a very slow start in China, much like it did in North America in terms of ticket sales. No matter how many positive reviews the movie gets, it doesn't appear to have legs, and this was completely predictable. So did Warner Brothers China to partake in payola in some way. I am willing to believe it. I'm willing to even believe they would do it here in the States.
Yeah, sure. I've spoken to fellow screenwriters who are hacks who love this movie.
Yeah.
And I mean, they are hacks. Like every single counterpoint they give me, they are just rewriting the film in their head to give me an excuse that is not visible on the screen.
No,
So
I've actually had.
Oh, go ahead.
No. Go ahead, Nick.
I was gonna say to script. So are basically they coming up with a better idea of what could have been versus what actually was?
No, when you point out the argument like, oh, why did Batman get out of the Batplane to chase these crooks on a bike? It's like, well, the Batplane can't travel between skyscrapers and buildings. Like, it just did. That's how Bruce Wayne got out of the Batplane to be on the
I
bike.
see what you're saying now. Okay, I get what you're saying now.
Well, they can't make sharp turns. The guys made one sharp turn. The plane could easily account for that. And the climactic ending of it was on a bridge. There's no obstacles to prevent the plane from catching and snaking that.
That thing, yeah, I was gonna say that thing made a few sharp turns, but whatever. Let's pretend that we didn't see that because they need that to not exist to justify their own argument.
Well, and I just I was just talking to Culture and those guys, and I think Culture pushed on this a little bit about the whole Tom Cruise thing. I guess there's not any proof that he actually said that.
No one can find a legitimate quote. It's like
I have said this too.
Yeah, I guess that it came from a source who knew him. I guess. So, but if let's just say for the sake of argument, if it's
give it
true,
a private screening, Tom. And there's no word on if he's actually said so or if he's saying. I truly think they bought him off at that.
Well, here's what I was going to say.
It's just Hollywood talk. Every movie that's out at whatever time is the greatest movie ever.
Yeah. Well, there's another reason for it. I have a precedent for it. Go ahead, Klobby, and then I'll present.
No. I was just agreeing with the script on that one. Yeah.
Okay. Well, my idea is basically, look, we've got Tom Cruise right now in the middle of a pissing match with Oppenheimer and Barbie over IMAX screens. My guess is Tom's people put a call in, or he himself put a call in to somebody high up, maybe Zaslav himself at Warner Brothers, and said, hey, what's the situation with The Flash? Is it going to be out of the IMAX screens and stuff by the time I drop Mission Impossible? And they said, oh, yeah, we can make sure that can happen as long as you say it's the best superhero movie you've ever saw.
Wow.
And he's like, done.
Done. It'll never be in writing, but a friend of mine will say that.
Exactly, yeah.
And same thing with Stephen King. I believe all those comments were all bought off. Because it's just so left field. Like, we never seen Tom Cruise speak about these movies outside of the information of him. Thank you, Sean. Good time.
And no, he's even denied ever even being anywhere nearly or any type of involved with Iron Man, even though supposedly his people were talked to.
Yeah,
that's what the story is now. It's like
never been associated with this stuff. Yeah. And then Stephen King, obviously the guy who's absolutely known for horror. And I'm not saying that just because you like one genre doesn't mean you can't like another. I'm not getting it. What I'm trying to get is that even that's for left field out of him too. If you just follow him on any of his socials, what he talks about versus what he likes, and obviously what he doesn't, he's never really gone anywhere near close to anything like that movie. It doesn't make sense. No. It doesn't make sense. I would expect it if let's just see here. No, I would expect it from I guess you could say a modern comic quotation marks pro. Like if a hack like Bendis said that, I'm like, oh yeah, of course Bendis is gonna say that. He's got to stay in Marvel and DC's good graces. But
Yeah.
Stephen King, that doesn't make sense. I would believe if Bendis said he saw it, as bad of a writer as he has been.
Oh,
I
you
would
don't know
actually
why
believe he
Stephen
saw
King
it.
would? You really don't,
Why?
Nick?
Why?
I'll tell you why. Because Andy Muschietti directed It and It 2, the two most successful Stephen King adaptations ever.
Oh, okay.
Well,
That
I mean
actually
the
connects some dots.
highest grossing successful.
Exactly. That's what I mean by
ever, 'cause
successful.
I think they
Yes,
grossed
script.
better than The Shining, and I think The Mist did okay, but it lived
Nowhere
more
near
into-
these.
Yeah,
Yeah, nowhere near It.
yeah, nowhere near it.
Like, I think the next closest one you'd probably have to go would be like Misery or something like that with inflation.
Yeah, Rob Reiner's Misery.
I think the only one I think that's ever grossed that much at the box office. Yeah. Because It was a huge success, and Andy and him are probably really good friends, Nick.
As a result of that,
Pretty much it.
Well,
And he's
that
still working
changes
in the It
everything.
universe too. Yeah, they've got an It mini or TV series prequel series coming out, and I thought somebody said something about a third movie. I don't know about that, but
It 3.
You know,
It's
yeah, It's. I don't know if it'd be a prequel too or what, but like, yeah, I know they are supposed to be doing some TV series. But am I surprised by this accusation? No, I think they're all, and whether you consider payola actual cash, and this is why I brought up the music industry part, because they got busted. It wasn't actually handing out just cash. It was buying hotel rooms, plane tickets, vacations,
women.
Women, exactly, drugs. That's where the cash came in. And ask Mikey if he's around. He knows exactly what we're talking about. Lavish gifts. Special appearances. Various things that can still be considered a monetary change of hands, even if it's a fucking goodie bag, which is a lot of the things that these social media and YouTubers get when they go to these press events and stuff like that. Script, help us out here. What kind of shit's in the goodie bag? I'm sure they get like an iPhone sometimes or an iPod and
Lots of swag. Whatever they want to
yeah.
get from, like, again, you also have sponsorships from certain companies. So like for Sony Films, when you go to their premieres and stuff, you get a bag of cool Sony products.
Right.
You won't get
There
a
you go.
PS5, but you'll get some really other cool stuff.
Maybe a PSP.
Yeah, maybe a PSP. Definitely some Sony headphones and things of that nature. Maybe
Couple
a phone
Blu-rays
or so. Yeah, you never know.
Maybe a Blu-ray player if they're still making them. I don't know. No, but you're right. It's 100%. It's a buy-off. Are they saying you have to? But no, they may not actually be anything you have to sign in paper. But you believe there's a verbal agreement there of sorts.
It's a general. They're essentially kickbacks. There's no real contract there. It's just an unspoken rule, which is, oh, you said this. Hey, look, there's a thing on the table. You can take that.
Well, and the other thing that we have brought up is like these talking points, right? Where this is where I think we get the similar saying. It's a triumph. It's the greatest comic book movie ever. It's the best Star Wars movie since Empire Strike Back. They all say and puppet the same exact, or parrot is actually a better term, I should say. I say puppet, it should be parrot. You're right.
They're puppets playing parrot. And that just shows you the lack of creativity when it comes to the press with regards to these films. Because remember, between the 60s, have you ever read the old articles from the 60s criticizing movies or promoting movies up until like the mid 90s, they all had very different takes that were still positive or huge. And then it started to blend and homogenize into the same quotes over and over again, to the point where most DVDs would just grab the quote, but never put the person who said it under the quote, because it was just so many people said the same thing.
Well, and and that's a marketing thing, right? Script, they want you to catch certain buzzwords.
Yeah,
that's really what it is. Sorry, Nick.
No, I'm getting what you guys were all saying. Isn't it so weird though? You think, especially in the day and age of the internet, someone in, I guess, Hollywood press and media would have said, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't have all these people saying the same things, because someone's got to connect the dots on that." So it's, once again, in the day and age of screenshots and YouTube and videos and what people say, like, someone could say, "Hey, look, all these people are saying the same exact thing, and they're saying it repeatedly." Like, you would think someone would be, "Hey, maybe we should backpedal at least a little bit on this." But the fact that they're just writing on it, like, they don't. Do they really think that regular people are just stupid? I don't get it.
Well,
why
they do that. Yes, they do.
What do you think, script or Tom?
I don't know. Six did send me in the background here. This is so I'm assuming this comes from Barbara Muschietti, who said this about Tom Cruise and Stephen King. It was very cynical industry, and to hear people that really have no skin in the game because they have nothing to gain just say something that lovely. In the case of Tom Cruise, he called us, talked for 15 minutes, praising Andy, praising the film, and it just feels very good because we really work very hard on it. Yeah, see, people work so hard.
General praise is normal.
Yeah.
Great directing.
Yeah.
You guys did a great job
Yeah.
producing. My God, the cinematography, that was fantastic. I
Yeah.
was so impressed with the ideas you used for your set pieces. All general terms that don't actually mean anything. Listen, I'm impressed with the idea of the Flash rescuing babies falling to the ground. What they did in that movie was absolutely lazy and terrible and dumb and stupid and didn't put me on the edge of my seat like it should have.
I'll give you one other scenario about Tom Cruise. Doesn't he have kids? Younger kids
A
still?
number of them.
Exactly.
4 kids.
My guess is he probably got an invite, and I've heard that he's a very gracious individual, so he probably called them to thank them for inviting him, and he probably brought his kids and all that shit. That was probably more of a family night thing. Could be that, too. It could be as simple as that. You know, again, and this is what Andre pays me to do, is think of these kind of scenarios. So there you go.
Maybe it's just really crappy taste. That would...
I don't think he really. I think Script's right. I think it's a lot of political things, and it was probably more of a thanking them for having a good night and all that kind of shit more than anything.
The biggest known secret in Hollywood is that 90% of the movies are trash, but you never say that to them because you want to work with them and get a deal.
Speaking of, we'll get to trashy movies here in just a moment. We've got some super chats to get to before we get to this bit of news, because this has already been challenged. But WDW Pro said earlier this was going to get challenged by Lucasfilm, so we're still gonna go with this, but we're gonna tell you the big grain of salt. Supposedly Lucasfilm has denied that these plot.
Of course they're gonna deny it.
Of course they are. Anyway, Sergeant Point Blank, speaking of points, says they should have had Billy D. Williams play Two-Face. He got paid anyway.
He got paid. He also has gone on record saying he would have loved to have done the role.
Yeah, he should have.
He should have.
Yeah,
but I think at the time it was just one of those things. I'm not going to give an excuse for it because Tommy Lee Jones, he's one of the worst performances in the movie. Yes,
it's a terrible performance by Lee, but Tommy Lee Jones, but he's a big name at that point, an Oscar winner, and
Yep, and that was hot on the heels of like The Fugitive and all that business. So yeah. Tiki the Hut says, any of y'all Rocketeer fans? I miss Good Pull.
Oh God, love Rocketeer.
One of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
Not only a great movie. Yeah, I was going to say Clobby. Thank you.
Nick, we just
Clobby and
right?
and also Pablo of Midnight's Edge Espanol, and a few others we talked about on the Comic Shop Talk. We talked about the Dave Stevens entirety of his run book. We did 2 episodes.
We reviewed it.
Yeah. And look, Clobby talked about reviews. Yeah, please check them out. We're big Rocketeer fans here on the panel.
Love it.
And you can get that movie on Blu-ray anyway. But I believe that should be one of the first movies that Disney thinks about getting on 4K is that and Dick Tracy. It's like, why the fuck are these movies not in 4K yet?
Rocketeer in 4K? My brain would explode, and I'd probably have a missing head, but that's fine.
I think it's just through the movie club, but yeah, I have the Blu-ray. So, Sith Holocron. Oh, go ahead.
That's what I'm saying. I love that movie.
Oh, okay. Sith Holocron says, is there any chance of a social comeback? Do you mean with social comeback? You're going to have to... What do you mean by social comeback, Sith? Yeah, let us know what you mean. You don't have to send another super chat. Just at me in the... Yeah. Doc Fortune says, Warner Brothers was a titan of animation. What are they doing? Well, I guess they're reinvigorating their animation department again, but I have no real insight or clue
dropping the ball for 20 years, sadly.
Yes, true.
They really have. They're straight to DVD, straight to video stuff. Started off strong and then petered off. It took a nosedive essentially. I don't know what happened over there. I was rarely able to ever partake in some of the Warner Brothers animation stuff. I do know that they hired a lot of tags. Those are Animation Guild writers. I don't know what the heck happened. over there. They lost it. I have a suspicion that Jay Olivia might have contributed to the decrease in quality because he's a very good
Well, they
artist, not a
closed
good
down their
story-
animation department a
not
little
a
while
good
back here,
storyteller.
and now they're opening or they're starting it up again. So
Well,
I have
they've
no
built a new
idea.
one, yeah. So they cut out
Yeah.
all the redundancies, and now they're trying to get new people in there.
Yeah.
But I don't know yet.
I have no idea either. That's what I'm saying. I can't comment on the new regime there, but yeah, I know that what they used to have was a bit of a
I do
mixed
know
bag.
some of their top writers that they hired in the 90s don't work there anymore. They will not be hired again, at least under the old regime. I don't know if Zaslav's going to change his mind on that, because like Paul Rug was one of the comedy writers who worked on worked on Tiny Toons and Freakazoid and a bunch of those things. Yeah, he's not involved. They kind of brought people back for a revival of Animaniacs, but it just did not have the spirit of the show at all. They didn't bring back enough of the original writers. I think they only brought back one. So it's really, yeah.
Doug 1985 says the only thing I liked out of the whole Dark Knight trilogy was Heath Ledger's Joker. That's fair, but I liked at least the first two movies. I liked the idea of like, okay, we're looking at a grounded world, but I agree with a lot of people that I love Heath Ledger's performance. It's definitely Oscar worthy, but it's a different kind of Joker.
It's a Joker in name only, but it works for that movie. Yeah,
good performance. Not really my Joker.
Yeah,
but yeah, and
he's
really
more
like
into chaos and stuff like that.
He's far more structured, and the other part too is that he plays the Joker seriously in the fact that his Joker denies that he's crazy, and the Joker in the comics and the cartoons pretends that he's crazy and does a lot of stuff to try and convince people that he's crazy. The joke is the fact that he's a very sane person in one regard, but he's just evil, malicious, selfish, greedy. Like he's all the horrible sins, but he's those sins with a very sane, methodical mind, and that's what makes him very, very dangerous. And that's why he's such a great foil for a character like Batman.
Well, and I don't remember if it was you, Script, or who said it, but like even the whole boat thing, which I enjoyed in Dark Knight, that's still more something like maybe
that's more like a Two-Face thing.
You said Two-Face. That's it. Yeah, Two-Face. Yeah, that's what it was. I thought you said Riddler originally, but now that I remember it, now you said Two-Face. Yep.
Yeah,
because you're right. That is totally a Two-Face thing.
Good and evil together, and he'd make it all determined based on a coin. Yeah.
They were too busy ruining Two-Face in that movie. I hated the way they handled Two-Face in that movie.
Me too.
He would actually be more like
Rachel.
I can't. You have the luxury I don't have. I just can do the flip of the coin, but I actually give you the choice, Batman. Do you save good by killing evil, or
heads or tails? You know, which one is going to be evil? The scarred or the clean? You know, like.
Oh, I hate that's why I have a lot of problems with that movie, and I hate what they did.
But I do like his performance, and I like the way he plays the mob and everything. Parts of that are something that the Joker would do.
Really good.
Some of it's good. The editing in that film is quite a mess, and Nolan had to salvage a scene that he couldn't reshoot because Heath Ledger blew a line, and that's the line where he's making the argument to Dent in the hospital room about how if you say like an army truck or something gets blown up, people like don't flinch at it, but the moment you say a mayor's going to die, people lose their minds. He leaves out the fact of the context of you expect a person in a dangerous position to get hurt. You don't expect a person outside of that to be hurt, because nobody expects a mayor to be shot or anything or killed or what have you. But like if you're a criminal or a soldier, you are living in a dangerous world. You are most likely going to face those consequences. And that's what he was trying to get through. But he screwed up that line. Sadly, he while they were in the editing and he was working on Dr. Parnassus, he died. And they cannot.
Yeah, because they could have twisted that line to where it works still, because they could have said what you just basically said, ostensibly, Script. Be like, what's the difference there? One is expected, one's unexpected.
Yeah,
so
they could have done it that way, but they didn't.
And that's the difference here, is that Joker does the unexpected, right? Like you expect one thing, but he does the opposite of that. So like they could have played into that. He
leads you down one path without you knowing that he's doing something else.
Exactly. And that's what I mean.
When I heard that in the theater, it threw me off, because I'm like, you just argued the same point. Like you didn't create a differential. You basically just said, me, the crazy Joker that's in this movie, is saying, if I'm going to kill this or this, you don't panic for either one. It's like, well, no, because it's coming from you, I'm going to panic because you didn't separate the differential. You didn't say that I'm going after an innocent person. So yes, you would panic, but because I'm going after people in dangerous lives, you don't panic because that's expected. Like it just threw me off, and all my friends were like, "No, I didn't understand that. I got what he's saying." Like you filled it in yourself, but he literally did not say that was in there.
No. Yeah, I get what you're saying exactly, and that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's all you had to do is fix that with a little bit of extra on the end there.
Yeah, and he looked like he was spitting image Sandra Bernhardt in that shot when he's dressed as a nurse.
If you had the Joker being the guy to set it up for Two-Face, it might have been a different. See, that's something the Joker would do, right? He would set Two-Face down this path and give him that idea, plant that in his head, to where he would do something like that. And I think that would have been a brilliant usage of it. And you're right, because that's one of my biggest gripes of The Dark Knight Rises, is they don't address the ending of the film, right? Like the fact that they make Batman into this true vigilante now, where he'll be chased, you know.
Yeah, they met 8 years later. They're like,
yeah, it's like, what the fuck? Where did that movie go?
I've been working on this thing. I haven't fully fleshed it out yet, but I've been working on this comical satirical theory that the Dark Knight is pro-communist because it's the state lying to the people to enact a law that allows them to control crime.
Good.
Yeah,
that's what happens in The Dark Knight Rises.
Because it never gets addressed, right? Like that's the whole point.
They use Harvey Dent's death for their own means to pass a law to have more control over the people. They use it. I mean, it's so authoritarian. It's like, oh, I can make this into like a Jonathan Swift satire thing, and I'm still working on it.
Well, and that's also the problem I had with the whole deal with the Flash movie, where there's no more crime left in Gotham, and I guess it got cut out of the movie. But I know some people from earlier screenings had said that the reason the crime had gone in Gotham is because they had taken away all the guns.
I agree. Didn't hear it.
And Claudia, I know somebody, I forgot to grab that tweet for you. Some other critic who had seen it earlier commented on that.
So
and they said that is such a Batman thing. And it works perfectly. I'm like, the fuck it does. I think it was Frosty Weintraub. I can't remember. I don't want to really throw him under the bus if it wasn't, but I think it was somebody like that is my point. They said that about the movie, and I'm like, hold up, that's exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah,
and if that's the case, I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, that makes no fucking sense whatsoever. Somebody like the Joker would take over in one night.
Yeah, so what you're saying is that the line happened and someone took it out right before the movie came out then?
It probably happened between the fan screening. Yeah, between the fan screening and the actual release, they probably cut it. Which
Batman knows that Harvey Bullock, Commissioner Gordon, and also the GCPD, who he's worked with on and off, have all carried him. He's never condemned them for carrying.
Yeah, he
knows that's what they need for defense. Batman doesn't need to have a gun. He operates on his own.
No, he doesn't use one, but he doesn't.
Well, and here's my problem, and I wonder if
he thinks that guns are mostly for cowardly people when they're trying to exploit power over other people.
That's where I was going to go.
Doesn't ever impede on them being used as a form of self-defense. Yes. But he basically says that if there's two men in a fight and one draws a gun, the one who drew the gun is the coward.
They
unnecessarily escalated the fight.
Script is going exactly where I was going to go. They have misinterpreted this thing with guns and Batman since the fucking start. They think, oh, well, this is a good way to be anti-gun. No, it's not about anti-gun. It's about the person using the gun, right? It's not the fact that his parents were shot with a gun. It's the fact that his parents were killed by somebody he can never take vengeance on, right? And the fact that it was a senseless murder. They could have used a fucking knife. So if they use a knife, Batman's gonna be all against knives now? That is the dumbest argument I've ever heard in the fucking world. Batman, and that's why I never had a problem with Batman having guns and shit on a Batmobile. Because guess what? That's the common thing that in every cop movie, right? The cops have one size of gun, the bad guys have a bigger gun. So the cops have to find a way to get a bigger gun. When the cops get a bigger gun, they get a bigger. It's just the way it works, right? Somebody like Batman is going to have that kind of fucking artillery to be able to battle these fuckers, because we're set up in this idea that the police force is either so fucking corrupt they can't handle this shit, or it's so out of their hands. And that's why you need somebody like Batman to come in and act like a vigilante like that. Otherwise, it makes no fucking sense. That means things have gotten so fucking bad in this place that like somebody like Falcone can walk around and literally, and to quote somebody else, shoot somebody in the middle of the street and get away with it with hundreds of witnesses.
It's about the power and the corruption and the abuse of that power. Because here's the other
gun has nothing to fucking do with it. Other than that was just the tool.
Batman is using the concept of the gun as also a moral shield for himself to do the one thing that he thinks is one of the most heinous of crimes is to murder. You know, like he doesn't want to kill. He doesn't want to fall.
That's the key.
And
Exactly.
part of that, and I mean, that's kind of what the angle they did to cycle it back to the old Batman Beyond thing is. In Batman Beyond, because Bruce is having a heart attack while he's rescuing a woman, he draws a goon's gun and holds off a bad guy with it, and he feels like he just kind of failed with his mission because he did the very thing a coward would do, in that point, and it wasn't even 100% survival because the guy was coming at him with like a wrench, I think, and he just drew a gun on.
Well, that's a good story point. Yeah. See, that's
and
using it correctly.
Stuff. And but the thing is, he feels ashamed for it because again, it betrays the very thing of he's using a low hanging fruit form of deterrent as opposed to his wits and guile to do that, to show that, you know, a man can take care of himself in a one-on-one combat and doesn't need to result in basically an end game type weapon, which is like there's only one outcome that comes with a pistol, it's death. Whereas like, you know, anything else you use, your fists, you know, a bat or a club or something, there's always the possibility of someone surviving unless they just never stop going after you, like with it.
Yeah,
like, you know, one hit across the stomach or the kidneys with a stick is not going to be the same as a bullet to the chest or between the eyes.
Which I think it was Affleck who said they'll live or whatever it was, even though he does definitely kill some people or maim them to the point where they might as well be dead, but still. It's like, you're right.
He did.
Go ahead, Claudia.
In Bull versus Shite, he did kill people, but this,
yeah.
No, like, I mean, honestly, as far as the whole kill, like that's a Keaton thing in a way that in that universe, it works in that universe.
Yeah,
exactly. But once you get to this is my simplified now, and I say this in very, very broad terms, simplified version of the Trinity. So don't so people don't nitpick this to fuck. This is the most simplified version I can tell of it. Batman is the one who says it is not up to us whether or not this individual should die or live. Superman is the one saying, I have the power to kill or let this person live. What should I do? Wonder Woman's the one cutting their fucking head off while those two are arguing.
Yeah.
Like that's the real simplified version of the Trinity right there.
That's more like the 70s and 80s take, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's my basic understanding of them.
Before she became a spy without powers. Clobby, if you can correct me
and I don't really know Wonder Woman as well, but that's my basic.
Which one are you talking about now?
Yeah.
The Executioner version of Wonder Woman.
The Executioner. I mean, I didn't hear anything Tom just said. My damn
Wonder Woman that had no grievance, that had no issue with killing her enemies.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's a post-crisis.
Okay, so that's like mid to late 80s.
I think,
which makes sense because that's the version I know besides what's her face on TV.
I hate post. Right, I hate Klingon Wonder Woman, and it's really, it was something about post-crisis because you all know what she did to Maxwell Lord. We all know that, don't we?
I know what
she did to Maxwell Lord. So. Yeah. So,
and she lost her powers for a while in the 70s under Benny O'Neill, pointed out.
Of course, in those days, no. Yeah. She was very much wasn't about killing of any kind. She uses her powers. That's why
that's true. The older one is, yeah.
But after a certain point, into the 90s, a little bit into the early 2000s, I can't stand seeing her with a sword.
I don't mind her being a warrior because they could have fixed
mind it.
They could have fixed the movie if they would have just done what I said at the end. It would have made so much more sense.
I mean, I like her. For example, the great portrayal of her was on the Justice League animated cartoon.
Mm-hmm. Dude,
fair enough.
I liked her animated movie.
Here's my point: I didn't hate
them.
I like that one too, but I really didn't hate the Wonder Woman movie until the end. And I'm like, why didn't you? Yeah, I'm like, why didn't you logically see where this should have gone? It makes no sense to me. What's his face? The bad guy, the main bad guy. She's looking through the whole movie. It
was Ares.
Ares. Yeah. All they had to do was make Ares her dad.
See, I don't mind.
That's easy how to fix it.
I don't mind it when she's actually at war, like when she goes to Hades, when she fights Ares, or in the Greek mythology and stuff. That's fine. I'm talking about when she's in quote unquote man's world, as she calls it, and she's running around with the Justice League, or else she acts like a superhero who doesn't use she has superpowers, for God's sake. Not as strong as Superman, but she can fly and she's very strong. She
Yeah.
doesn't carry a damn sword. That's for certain types of events when she's fighting on
Right.
Paradise Island.
That's in the
I'm
Greek
fine with.
world. Yeah, in the
Right.
Greek world that where that battle is required, that's where she does it. But in
Exactly.
civilian worlds of sorts, she doesn't need it. I think the
No.
only time it would be you could justify it is if she's taken to Apocalypse, fighting parademons and all that stuff. Maybe.
Fair
But
enough.
my
But even
point
then,
with
she's
the
so
movie,
powerful.
my point
know,
with the movie is from a movie standpoint, right? Like you have the whole setup as it is. If at the end of the
Yeah.
movie had they just made it to where Ares was her dad, right? It would have first of all explained why her mom was against her ever leaving, what made her different from everybody else. She's, you know, the daughter of the god of war. And it also would clean up the mess of why war still exists, because that's her whole mission in the movie is if I kill Ares, that will end war. No, it doesn't. So what is your explanation for war continuing? It's easy. She is the daughter of the god of the war, hence as long as she's alive, there will always be war, but that makes her feel guilty about that. That's why she gets involved on whichever side she feels is right, because she knows war is going to happen one way or another because she has to live. So through that guilt, she fights with the side that she feels is right. And they could have just used that. Instead, they made this really bad ending that looks like it was filmed on a soundstage, and it makes no sense after that.
Yeah.
And that really would have cleaned that whole thing up. And I know most people will be like, that's not how it goes. I get it. But for a movie, you got to clean it up sometimes and just go with the flow. And I don't know if script agrees with that ending, but I think that would have been the easiest way to clean up that mess at the end.
It would definitely give a bit more of a poignant conclusion to the theme that had been presented with regards to like fighting war to try and end war, because it's all predicated on Ares' existence. But the other option would be is like Ares is like, war will always exist. It just gives me power. Like that's how you actually justify it, where you kill
There's
him,
another
war
way you
still
could have
exists.
done
It's
it.
just there's now no one to use that as power. That's kind of what they alluded to in the 09 animated film. Which I thought was really good. Carrie Russell.
Yeah, I like
was a
that. Carrie
great
Russell. I
voice
like
for
that
Robin.
one.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty good.
Yep.
That was around the last when when the DC animated movies were still pretty good.
Yeah, there was a small little window a few years after that, and then
oh boy, yes.
Like
anyway,
the other thing too that's also ridiculous. They've got what's his name from Supernatural? He's voiced Batman for the Long Halloween. Jensen Ackles, and then he's doing it for this new one that's coming out in the next little couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got this lobby by his agent being done for him to play the new Batman. It's like the dude cannot act. He's just a good-looking guy. Like he can't act, and let alone Batman. I mean,
I liked him on Supernatural when I watched the first few seasons, but
he works for Supernatural, yeah. But the thing is, he played that for what 15 to 18 years without any other roles. He is pigeonholed and he has no range. Like I saw him on The Boys, he was weak. Like he was very weak.
Was he on there?
Well,
oh, good. Look.
Yeah, for a whole season.
Mecca J's got a super chat here for 5 smackaroos. Thank you so much. Says the Dark Knight trilogy are good movies. They're just not accurate Batman films. They are in a sense of not so much with the villains, but like I said, it's a James Bond grounded.
It's a James
you know what
Bond
I've always
take
called
on
him?
Batman.
Yeah,
I've always called him Batman for Dummies.
I don't know if I'd go to that point.
Yeah,
but
I think it is. It's very not Batman to me. I mean,
I get where script is coming from. With
Nolan's been on record as saying he doesn't really know much or care much about Batman. Screw him.
Yeah.
So, no. Script is right though. It is more of a James Bond, even though I would go with more grounded world. But you're right, because a lot of his tools and things he uses are still rather James Bondish. But yeah,
you know, you've got Morgan Freeman's playing Q. You've got Gordon playing M.
True.
Bruce Wayne is Bond. Alfred is Moneypenny.
Is he money? Wow, he didn't even get to be M, right? He's money, but
well, no,
sort of.
I mean, oh no,
yeah.
So Okay, so Alfred is M, and Gordon is Felix Leiter.
Well, and then you also have what's his face? Lucius is the guy
Lucius
who does all the
Q. Yeah, he's Q, right?
Q, yeah, you said that. Yeah. All right, well, let's get out of this and get into this, because Lord knows people have been waiting long enough to talk about this garbage. Again, we preface this with Lucasfilm has supposedly debunked these rumors. So let's take that into consideration with this. Maybe this was an early synopsis that was taken out of context, and or maybe not. So according to this, it was set roughly 15 years after Rey's victory over Palpatine and the end of Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. The sequel delves into Rey's courageous endeavor to restore the Jedi Order, where she assumes the role of mentor to two promising young students, a girl and a boy, as their training progresses into... I'm laughing. I'll tell you why in a minute. It becomes evident that the girl possesses extraordinary abilities destined to emerge as the future leader. Okay, it's not so much that, of course, that's probably true. But let's take The Rise of Skywalker out and instead say set roughly 30 years after Return of the Jedi, then say the rest and take Rey and switch it over to Luke. That's what we wanted to begin with. That bothers me. So, in fact, according to Gizmodo, it's largely inaccurate from a source at Lucasfilm. So it's not even really technically Lucasfilm. It's a source at Lucasfilm. So, honestly, I'll be honest. I believe this. I totally fucking believe this is the synopsis. This is 100%. I think it's 100% spot on. CC, go ahead. You agree with me, obviously.
Well, it's got Kathleen Kennedy all over it. What would she like to do? She'd like to impose herself upon the existing story. Of course she does.
Not only that, it lines up with other things we've heard from other people, including WDW Pro and other synopsis prior to this. So, like, why would it not be this? Like, it makes no sense. Klobby, what do you think? Or go ahead, CC, finish. Sorry.
Good.
No, I was just going to say, my understanding is this synopsis is what we've been talking about for a couple of months now, so it's not really surprising. And to WDW's credit, he's gotten a lot of things right, so I think that counts here. You could take that and you can say that may play out here. There's probably some accuracy to it.
Yeah, and I mean, this comes from a production magazine. I can't remember the name of it, but it's like, yeah, it's not even really like an entertainment news magazine or whatever. Production Weekly, there it is, right there. World of Real, via World of Real. So they're the ones who broke it via Production Weekly, which I believe is just an industry paper. Am I wrong, Script, or do you not know anything about that?
I'm not familiar with Production Weekly. However, I will say the first 3 lines of that synopsis were basically uttered at Star Wars Celebration.
Yes,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And the other part too is like, I think the self-insert thing of KK wanting to be a British brunette. I think that's a little bit conjecture, because those types of people usually put on a British accent as authentic, and Kathleen Kennedy does not do that. So I think there's a little disconnect there. I just think she wants a powerful brunette, young version of herself in there, and they're just going with the British because they're better actors.
Well, and here you go. Here's what Production Weekly is. I thought I'd heard. Now I recognize their fucking logo. This is an industry thing. You have to have a subscription to get into this. They're a market network.
They're the pay-to-play trades type of deal?
Kind of thing, I believe. Yeah, they let you know where all of the fucking... where we get a lot of the leaks for, like, casting and stuff like that. Where you can go to...
you can subscribe to them, and they throw up the public... the ones that the studios want made public, sort of their casting calls and whatnot. Yeah. For actors and what things. Yeah, pay to plays. You pay to find out there's a casting call. You tell your agent hooks you up, and you go in.
Point is, there's no reason for them to lie.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's my point I'm getting to. Like, that was the whole point I was getting to from the start. It's not like one of these salacious papers trying to get a scoop, right? This is just them posting probably whatever they got from the synopsis from the people that got the casting calls. Because it starts production as April 2024, so that's less than a year away. So that means they're a couple months out from starting to do casting and all that shit, if not less than that. So yeah,
they can't do much casting because 1, in about 8 days we find out if
there's that too.
Actors go on strike or not, and 2, you can't do any production without writers. A lot of things have shuttered and are not being done because there's picket lines, even in countries that of WGA signatory productions. There's some writers that are over there that have got a picket line that are preventing people from crossing it to get to work. So not much of anything is really being filmed right now.
Well, it's still in the pre-production phase either way. So
it's
at
in
this
development
point,
stuff, right?
Or development, or whatever you want to call it.
They can't write a thing, but they can be like, well, let's hire a concept artist to do some set designs. Let's look at costumes.
Yeah.
Let's look at, okay, if we're doing abstract characters from what hasn't changed yet, what types are we looking for to fill these roles? That's the best that they can do, and there's very little.
They can field people, but yeah, it's just
It's
way.
It's
I believe
to a
it.
near halt, pretty much.
It's also a synopsis. It's not the entire script.
True.
Well, the thing is that synopsis could be part of the assignment request, right? So because, again, this is an assignment work job. No one has gone to Lucasfilm to pitch this idea. This is internally developed and saying we are now looking for a writer that can fulfill what we need this synopsis to be.
Or going with the idea that we already know you guys are on strike script. This is a script that's already been done, and they're casting just off of this script for now. And whatever changes come later on in the world, well, you know,
That's
they'll
hard
just
to say because
do it when they get there, because that's how they work.
It's hard to say because of all the people that have pitched for the job and were not hired, like Damon Lindelof. Like, there's been no announcement of who's actually associated with this beforehand, like confirmed. There's just a lot of rumors of who has done it, and we don't even know if there's actually really been a real treatment begun with.
You're not wrong, but I'm willing to bet Lindelof's been out a lot longer than since we've heard about it.
Lindelof is on this thing?
I don't know, man. I know Lindelof was pitching to try and get this gig, but I have yet to get anyone on the inside who has said that he actually put pen to paper, so to speak.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think he's not been a part of this for a while. This is just all coming to light, is my point.
Yeah, I think he did a pitch and they said, no, get away from us. And then he tried to finagle the media to get him hired on this, and it didn't work. And
could be. Nick,
that's
you're the
more
only
likely. He is a persona non grata right now.
Nick, you're the only one who really hasn't said too much. Do you believe this or not?
I believe all of this crazy. It just sums up, as CC Karaoke said. It sums up Kathleen Kennedy's crazy. So, I mean, I know that's not literally so, but I guess figuratively that's pretty much summed it up. Yeah, that this screams her idea. So I wonder if it's actually going to happen. No, I'm sure she's definitely planted the seed. Will it actually blossom and go full flower plant? I think that's going to be the better question, because you had that list, which that's a great list, might I add, where it had all the projects of how many became something or actually didn't see the light of day. And so many of these things have not seen the light of day. And then, of course, there's some that got downgraded to a TV show. I want to know if this actually happens. I don't see.
Yeah.
Oh, I see the Ray movie's going to happen.
I think if one movie happens, it's either going to be this one or the Filoni film.
I think both of those projects are going to happen.
There's a story out there today, right? That Kathleen Kennedy is already saying, "Oh, hey, Phoebe Waller-Bridge could totally take up Indy's mantle."
Oh,
that's what
she's
she
already
wants.
Oh yeah, she's ready.
That's
for
where
that.
I say,
she's
don't.
Yeah, we talked about
if Indy
that a while
flops,
ago.
don't be surprised she sticks around a lot longer, guys. She's got some gas in the tank.
Dude,
she's not going anywhere until she's good and ready.
Exactly my point. Like, yeah.
We can reiterate it over and over again. She's been in the industry so long and in such a powerful position as the go-to producer for guys like Spielberg and Lucas and so forth, that she has built a majority of the careers in the industry, and they are all loyal to her because of that. Doesn't matter how much she screws up. The only way that's going to change is if she is caught in broad daylight committing a crime outside of California and cannot be protected by the law.
Well, I'd be pretty far outside of it.
And even then, she'll probably accuse her twin sister of being the real culprit. So
it was Agatha all along. I totally believe this. I think the Ray movie will fucking happen come hell or high water, especially if Bob Iger does actually want this to happen, as we've heard from like Pro and others.
Might be retired, quote unquote, by the time they even get to production for this.
Could very well be, but it's the legacy factor. At this point, it's like they have to make this shit work. They are committed. No matter what, they're not gonna claim any kind of failure at this point. It's just not. And that's the other thing. What do people expect? I mean, I know everybody would love to get some kind of apology. Kathleen Kennedy ain't apologizing to nobody for fucking nothing.
No.
Not only that, even if she does apologize, it's not sincere. It means nothing. It's disposable for them. They don't care. It's not going to be like Joel Schumacher saying, "I'm very sorry to the fans," with regards to Batman on the DVD commentary, which he puts it on the commentary, but he doesn't really, go up over the Hollywood friends and say, "I'm sorry for Batman." He never did that. He just went directly to the fans. He went to any appearance he did that was brought up with fans for the conventions. He said, "Yeah, I made a mistake. I'm sorry."
It's in the making of too, I believe.
In the making of, yeah, like he did it for the people. He didn't do it for the studios. Kathleen Kennedy would never do it in any other way. She'd be like, okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I screwed up Star Wars.
We're
Okay.
just lucky that Warner Brothers allowed that to be on the DVD. Is more like it.
Yeah, we are.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is because here's the clip right here.
I think he's digging.
I got it. I just had to wait for this. I can't fight this feeling anymore. Fucking commercial.
Oh.
Do it.
There's anybody watching this that, let's say, loved Batman Forever and went into Batman and Robin with great anticipation. If
That's
I
me.
disappointed them in any way, then I really want to apologize because it wasn't my intention. My intention was just to entertain them.
Yeah.
And he does. I think in the commentaries where he gets more into the toy part.
Yep.
Where he got a lot of pressure with the toy
that.
stuff.
Because again,
that
here's the
comes
thing.
off very sincere.
His apologies was
Yeah.
predicated on the fact I thought my goal was to entertain you, and you didn't like it, and he doesn't blame you for not liking it. He just says, I'm sorry that you were that you didn't like it, and it wasn't my intention to make this bad for you. And it's not even it's not the whole I'm sorry you didn't like it type of thing, as in like, your standards are too high. It was like, this is my goal, this is what I try to do, you're not wrong, and I'm sorry. But and then the other part too, he also says, if you did love it, thank you. Like, that's the other part too. He addresses anyone's perspective with regards to that film.
But the other side of it too is, I believe in the commentary, and I think this is what you're talking more so about script, is that's where he actually gets into like, look, I was feeling a lot of pressure from the toy companies,
from the
through
studio.
Warner Brothers, to get this thing done in an extremely short amount of time. Because I believe this was only 2 years between this one and
That's right.
It came out
Forever,
in
wasn't it?
95 and 97.
95,
Yes.
2 years. So
because there
two
was
years.
3 years between Batman and Batman Returns.
yeah.
Yes.
See, that's
And
the big
between
difference.
Returns
Yeah.
and Forever, there's 3 years as well.
Exactly. So that was the other thing, is he was saying like he basically had a shortened time to work on this movie than what they were used to, on top of getting so much pressure to like, make sure you get this in there, make sure you get that in there. Can you get more vehicles in there? Can you get more suits in there? And this is where I was sticking up for him and talking about when I was talking to Sean, is like, I think we are a little harder on him about this movie than we probably should have been in hindsight, because there's nothing more here really than is more damning that was in Batman Forever. It's just the way it was presented to us. And these two actors, like especially Schwarzenegger, I can agree was probably miscast as Mr. Freeze, and Uma Thurman wasn't really given the proper direction as to where to go.
No,
with
she
this.
didn't have anything good to say. She was given
That
great direction.
or
She just-
writing, maybe. There you go. So
her
whichever
writing
it
was-
is, script. Yeah,
it's,
sorry.
well, again, it's Akiva Goldsman. Even the best directors have a hard time making his stuff work. It's just the nature of the game.
Again, yeah, I get it. There's things there that are just a little off. It's kind of like, it's not, and I don't even compare it as like a being like, at the time for years, I would have compared, and I think Andre even maybe used this example, and I disagree with it now. He compared Batman Forever to Batman and Robin being the same as Thor Ragnarok to Thor Love and Thunder. I disagree completely, because Batman Forever and Batman and Robin are almost very, like, they're very two movies made together almost, right? They're very similar in their tone, the music, everything about them. Schumacher did clearly put a lot of work into Batman and Robin. It was just the wrong kind of work.
There was a bit more of elevated tongue-in-cheekery with Batman and Robin compared
Very
to
much.
Yeah, so
Batman
he
Forever.
turned it up,
Forever
level
was
up
trying to
pretty
be
good.
Forever was trying to balance out what the previous two films were
Yeah.
doing with the new aesthetic that Warner Brothers wanted Batman to go.
Exactly.
And then they just further distance themselves from that tone in Batman and Robin to just let's have the aesthetic and the tone be far more in sync.
Well, and not just that, it's like Batman Forever is closer to what he was in the comics for the most part, especially probably in the 50s, 60s, and part of the 70s. Batman and Robin is more of a, like, the 60s TV series mixed with a cartoon. Like, it is a flat out cartoon. Because and I felt that at the moment when John Glover comes in, you're like, oh my God, this guy is totally playing a cartoon character.
Oh, he's hamming it up. He
exactly.
Is
It's brilliant.
He's a
It's
Hanna-Barbera
fucking brilliant.
villain.
Exactly. He looks like a fucking cartoon character. Like, you're just like, oh my God, I get it now. Like, after all these years, all my hatred that I threw at this movie, and again, part of it's because of Joel's apology and the shit we've gotten over the last few years, I'm sure. And again, I'm not saying this movie is by any means a great fucking film. It's still a 6 out of 10. but I think it's being very overly mocked and maligned, or whatever the words I'm looking for. But yeah,
I'd say your words are summing up well. No, the
I don't
movie
know.
is definitely
Make me wanna
taking a
go
lot
get-
of beating. Here's the thing: if you're someone who gets into Batman and your first 2 iterations discovering him, or even 3,
I laughed at the back
or
card
any
this
of the
time.
3, or any one of the 3 are either A, the comic books at a time when a lot more people were reading the comic books, A, or B, the Michael Keaton movies, or C, the animated series. If those are any one or all 3 of your introductions to Batman, that's obviously going to become the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of Batman. So the minute you see something like Batman Robin, it's going to throw you the hell off without really, especially if you're someone who doesn't do their homework, that digs back to the 60s, realize, oh, hey, there was a show. There was even a time where even some of the comic books were even a little bit more, I wouldn't say funny, but they definitely weren't as dark and grim as what they have become. I mean, obviously, I feel like Dark Knight Returns was one of the stories that really pushed Batman back towards that atmosphere. I mean, Club, you
I
can
look
tell
at
me
it
if you think
differently
it was
now.
the
You're
first
right.
or if it was not, but people got thrown off by that, and I think because they had a preconceived notion of Batman being grim and super dark.
Well,
They
they
think, oh
brought
wow,
into
why
the
is Batman being funny? This is automatically bad just because of that.
Yeah, there's also the biggest hurdle for anyone addressing the character of Batman in modern day is the fact that the in-world propaganda against Batman, that he's a crazy nut job wearing a silly costume, it has transcended into the actual reality where the audience thinks that's true to the character, as opposed to realizing, oh, he's a brilliant detective and he's using basically superstition and the ignorance of the populace as a tool to allow him to do the job most effectively. Like,
Well,
that's basically it.
And I even laughed at the back credit card scene this time.
Oh boy!
Like the way I was supposed to, not in cringy way either. Because if you watch the entire scene, it's actually not a bad joke. Because they've all been intoxicated by poison ivy, and this is like a scene that would be in the '60s show.
Man.
This is definitely a scene that would be in the '60s show, because you've got the old pervy rich guys. Because that's the whole thing, is they're auctioning off these women, right? So you got the old pervy rich guys throwing out big dollar amounts for poison ivy, and then Robin throws in, I think it's like 2 million or whatever, and he's like, "You don't have that kind of money. I'll borrow it from you, 3 million." And then he's like, 5 million, and he's like, he pulls out the credit card. I died.
Well,
I couldn't help it. It was just like, maybe it's the first time I was like really paying attention to the joke, because I'm sure by that time in the theater I was just totally checked out of this movie. But like, yeah, sorry.
Well, I would say this: that Batman always carries cash, and that's from, like, it's just easier. It's untraceable. You know,
it doesn't matter. It's an in-world joke, though.
it's an in-world joke that he would have he has a forever card. Yeah,
exactly. Like, I got it this time. God damn it! I'm just like, I get this fucking movie this time. For some reason, it cracked with me. I knew what Schumacher was doing. I don't know why.
I think I got it last time, and it made me sick.
It could, Claudia. I totally get it. It still does. It didn't. I didn't like love it afterwards. I'm just like, I've been so hard on this fucking movie. Too hard on this fucking movie all these years. And
You're
again,
gonna make me go sit through it again, aren't you?
I hope not.
Yeah, that's what you're doing.
It's not nearly as good as Superman 3.
Superman 3 has more of a good charm to it. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. Tommy Review says, has anyone seen the masterpiece Turkish Star Wars? I have seen scenes from it. I've not seen it in its entirety.
Likewise, it's a great perversion and theft of Star Wars footage.
Yeah, and then Street Fighter. I haven't watched that one in a while, but I wonder if I'll soften to that one.
The Van Damme Street Fighter?
Yeah.
That's. I mean, Raul Julia makes that worth watching.
Oh yeah, he's great, but he's sick as hell in that movie. That's what made me feel bad watching it the first time out.
Yeah. Oh,
you can tell they're just pushing him too far.
Even though he's sick, he's still, like, the voice does not feel any weaker than any of the other stuff I remember seeing him in prior. He still knows how to do the comic timing, and he's still holding the scene, and you still can't take your eyes off him and that character. He's making it very charismatic for a villain. Yeah, I mean, it's. I don't think it really holds up all that well, because it's still ridiculous, and you're kind of lost as to what's really happening, because it is really just a hostage situation. And you're also wondering, well, why is a guy from Brussels an American with an American tattoo on his shoulder?
I got it. I just haven't watched it since it came out.
I would say that the Street Fighter Chun-Li movie in the early 2000s.
I've never seen that.
atrocious. Yeah,
That's the
never
one with
saw it.
what's her face from
That's the one with
Smallville.
with Kristen Crook from Smallville.
Kristen Crook, yeah. Like, oh yeah, I never saw that thing. I saw the trailers for it, and I'm just like, what the? And they pushed the hell out of that during Smallville too.
Oh
I
yeah,
remember
they
seeing
even did an
trailers all the
episode where
time
she
for
was
it,
doing
yeah.
similar stunts in the show. Because
It's like, boy, did you guys really play into this?
God, so bad.
But all right, let's get out of here because I know there's Thursday's throwdown is going to be starting here pretty soon. Nick Weiser, I'm assuming you're going to be heading over there.
Yes, sir. I will be headed over there, and we'll be talking about it. It's gonna be TNT tonight. Should be fun. We'll pretty much talk about your usual, what's going on in the world this week, of the culture and entertainment. And tomorrow night, Comic Shop Talk, we'll be talking ASM number 21 through 24 of the original Stan Lee Steve Ditko run. So if you're a comic book fan, or if you're just looking to learn more about the actual source material, tomorrow is a good time to tune in because we're talking about, well, my favorite fictional character of all time, the Amazing Spider-Man. So please come join us for that. So, and yeah, thank you for having me, Tom. Thanks for hanging out with us, chat, and Wrenches. Thank you for wrenching. And to the rest of the panelists, good to see all you guys, and you all have a great night.
Oh, there's a member chat, I think. Maybe. I just did get a member chat. Was there another one for that? Jeremiah Hembry, got that one. Got Lance Corporal Waffles. Or we didn't read this one. We didn't read it out loud. That was my fault. Lance Corporal Waffles says Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Iger's legacies will be a pile of ash. That was once Disney and Star Wars. Pile of ash that was once Disney and Star Wars that they themselves burnt to a crisp. Ugh, I couldn't read it, but now I did. Yeah, I mean, again, that goes to what I said before. They got to do whatever they can to try and save face at this point. And a Rey movie they think is the answer. It's not.
No.
But
No, it's not, but they think it is.
Exactly. You got to remember how these people think. Basically, think of the dumbest thing you could ever fucking possibly do. And then go, that's a good idea.
Yep.
That's how they would usually think. So.
The Rings of Power is a good example, too.
Exactly. Like, really, I mean, and it's like you're given every tool you need, and yeah, you're still screw it up. Mecca J says, happy 35th anniversary to Who. Oh, it's today the day that it came out. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? It's the film continues
love it.
to hold up as a classic. I agree. One of my favorites
movie.
too, yeah. In fact, I got the cards right here in the comic book right there, ready for my Tom's Attic when I get to it.
Attic Attacks, which I guess I inspired for you.
I like those, by the way.
Kind of, yes, you did actually, and very much so with your bragging with your look what I found. It's like, oh, you got those, nice.
My shelf fell apart, and I had to clean it up. And I found things that I thought I had lost years ago, including a college diploma.
And actually, I actually, wow, well, that's kind of cool.
I know.
That's a hell of a find. Actually, I bought probably one of the more expensive sets I'd ever had here. I got it right here. What's this one?
Ooh,
Masters of the Universe one.
That looks good. Really
that one's
good.
a difficult one to get your hands on for real cheap, but I got it for a decent price when I got it. But now it goes for like $300-400 complete. There's some more I want that I don't have, but for the most part, I got a lot of the ones I want. But I'm going through the Ninja Turtle ones first. Then I think I'm going to do Batman, and there's 2 series of those. And then I don't know what I'm going to do next after that. I haven't decided yet. But in between there, I'm going to slip in, and this is for the members right now. Here you go, 6 if you're listening. For the Congo members, you can actually get a look at the Supergirl short that will go along with the video. That will be the next video I do is Supergirl, the comic book adaptation. So there you go. So there's the news on that. And if you're a member, you can already see that short. So go to the members part of the page. But yeah, there you go. And hopefully you guys check it out because not a lot of people have watched them yet, but some people have. So hopefully they get picked up for too long. But anyway, Clobby's got to run. What do you got going on, Clobby?
I was going to slip.
Did you already do your part?
No, I was going to slip, but I guess I got to go.
Yeah, go ahead.
A little less half an hour. I'm going to go on with Clobby's Clubhouse with Raquel and Mark, of course. Just got a lot of stuff to do before that gets started. And I'll be over hanging out Nick's tomorrow night and Saturday night Star Trek as always, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Still reviewing Deep Space Nine. Thanks for having me, buddy. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
All right, everybody. Take care, man. Script, CC. See you later, Nick.
Take care, Clobby.
Chat.
Take care,
Have a
Clobby.
good one.
Bobby.
Later,
Now,
Gators.
speaking of script, what you got going on?
Well, I was supposed to do a live stream this morning, but my girlfriend took the day off work and we were outside. So I apologize to my followers over there.
Damn you for having a life.
Darn me for having a life.
no.
But, I might be able to pull it off Sunday. No guarantees, but I'm going to try because there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about. I just before I came to this show, I just saw Strange New Worlds episode 2, and I'm going to combine my review of the first 2 episodes on Patreon in the next few days. I'm just have to figure out where to start because every time I think I'm starting at the beginning, I remember something else that has to take me further back, and it's oh gosh, it is really, really bad. They don't even understand the Prime Directive in that show. Like that's how terrible it is.
Well, did you hear my rumor that I heard it's going to get a 50 episode run?
How?
I don't know. That's the rumor I heard. We'll see. CC, what you got coming up? Speaking of seeing.
Usual Friday night karaoke tomorrow. And then on Saturday, the new show, the Doc, Danger, and CC music show.
Nice. All right, check that out. And me, like I said, check out that one video. I'm going to try to hop into Thursday night Throwdown, Nick, but I might be late. We'll see here when I get there. If I do, I'm supposed to be taking a break. Like this is me taking a break.
Is this like rehab from YouTube?
Yeah, I might actually not do anything tomorrow.
Oh my!
All right.
Or not tomorrow. I
Not
actually
even the
have to.
morning
No,
show?
no. Tomorrow I have to do the morning show. But from
I was
after the
gonna say.
morning show, all through Saturday night to Sunday, I might not do anything. Might not do anything.
Wow.
Oh, 6 to 7 DM.
Recuperate. It's got to happen.
No. Oh, member stream is on Sunday. Thank you, 6.
So that's what you're doing Sunday.
Yes, Sunday until the morning stream. Yes. Yes. So stay tuned for that. And Tim Hayes, thank you so much for being a member for 20 months. We appreciate that. That is amazing. Check out our Congo video right now, which is a preview of the next Tom's Attic Attack. And with that, I bid you all a farewell, and hopefully you have a good night and take care of yourselves and each other.
Excuse me, ma'am. No porn at the bar.
Oh, it's okay. I'm transgender.
Oh, I had no idea. Do whatever you want all the time.
Friends, if you're looking for real old school laughs, you're in for a treat because we've got them right here. Flip City Magazine. Remember Mad Magazine? Then it went woke? Well, don't worry. Flip City has no chance of going woke. That's right. 4 times a year, you'll get an actual printed magazine full of jokes, stories, comics, and more, all about today's pop culture, entertainment, and woke politics. The city takes terrible entertainment trends we love to hate with hilarious parodies of Lord of the Rings, Stranger Things, The Walking Dead, Star Trek, Hunters, and more. Trust me when I say there is nothing else like Flip City on the market. So subscribe today. It will be delivered in print, or you can even get it digitally if you're one of those wacky Zoomers. Either way, follow our link and sign up today, and if you put in midnight, you get an extra 10% off. Check out Flip City Magazine today. Check out our sponsor, Flip City Magazine. Thank you so much, guys.